Alright, so what I want to do is go over a river rafting safety talk just from the perspective that it's a verbal waiver. Okay? You know what I mean? It's like, this is information that I have to give you. So that means that I'm going to omit things that can just be given in the boat. Well, I guess there's two different places. One, you do an official safety talk on land. You group everyone up, give them all the same information. I think, as a company, you want to do two things. Because people can't handle 10 minutes. I mean, I just wasted 30 minutes of your second just explain 30 minutes of your day just explaining this. Excuse me. I need to slow down. I've almost wasted now 45 seconds of your day just explain it. So let's get into it. On this safety talk outline, okay, so we have like a statement of inherent risk. Okay, it's like, let's see. It's oh yeah, this is perfect. It says whitewater rafting has inherent risk. We cannot guarantee your safety during this trip. Rafting is an adventure. There is a possibility of injury or death. There's a possibility of injury or death. What I would say is that there is a possibility. I guess it gets down to statistics. But then this company says that, however, we have an outstanding safety record at this blah 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 company. That's an assurance. You know what I mean? That's saying it's like, just disregard all the risks. You know, I wouldn't say that. Like, if it's either evident or it's not. You know what I mean? Like, a safety record don't mean anything when it comes down to, statistically, you're going to have a death, and guess what? We're about due. So, like, that's kind of what this video is about. Is like especially on a river, and I'm just going to use this river that, maybe I'll use this name, maybe I won't. But it's a river where the litmus test is no commercial deaths. Well, guess what? You know what I mean? Statistically, you're overdue. So, from my perspective, it's just so good to treat. You know what I mean? If I'm like teaching new guides, if I'm like coming into a company and be like, well, here's the evident and obvious. It's not like a pat yourself on the back. It's get ready for one to happen. And let's just say it already did. My mindset is that this river, this company, has already had a death. And guess what? That death was last year. And even you don't even know right now. You're like, whoa, they did have a death last year. Well, they didn't. I'm just pretty good at setting the stage. But if you had that perspective, now what? One of my favorite of all time swiftwater rescue courses was taught by a gentleman who went on to oil rigs. You know what I mean? Like, your life is in constant peril, statistically. High-risk jobs. The whole thing could just blow sky high. You know what I mean? And it touches on a subject. It's like, do we watch the movie Event Horizon as a documentary? I've not seen it, but it almost seems like historical fiction. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to know that was a true event. But that's the way our minds work. Our minds will pay attention if something is historically, fictional. If we can, be like, well, it didn't happen to me, so, it doesn't happen. But it's actually useful, because from that perspective, we can now have a dialogue. Now we can be like, well, it did happen. So, what's going to happen when your company has a death on the river? You know what I mean? Like, you want to make sure, at least minimum, is from a legal standpoint. You know what I mean? You did everything you could do from that minimum. And then everything else is you know what I mean? Grassroots from an industry, yes, we want to be constantly improving. But that's where you go on to YouTube, and I'm going to be the same way. I enjoy opinions. I see the raft world as just it's held together by everyone's opinions. And that's just my opinion. And that is good. You know what I mean? I've gotten to guide in, I guess just 2 states. But I got to guide in a state that had state regulations. Were all the regulations followed to a T? No. Nothing ever is followed to a T. There is some human element of like, well, whole Toledo, you're making us do all these things, and there's no exceptions. Well, guess what? There's plenty of exceptions, because it's like it's not regulated on a daily basis. But the second you have like a raft death, then are those things brought under scrutiny? Well, could be. You know what I mean? Lawyers can nitpick the tiniest details. But in general, like, we have to have a mindset where it's like, well, at least there's just like a minimum. What's the minimum standard? So that's kind of what I'm going to kind of go down this list. But anyway, basically your waiver, like what I want to do is maybe I would insert here, like in the description, here is the waiver and the liability video for a skydive company. And I think it's just tip top. You know what I mean? You signed up to go skydiving for whatever reason, psychologically, you think you're going to die. Everyone thinks they're going to die when they sign up to go skydiving. Guess what? Rafting can be twice as dangerous as skydiving. Statistically, rafting is more dangerous. You're going to die statistically more. You're going to die twice before you died once skydiving. You know, maybe. Sometimes it's not twice. It's just like 25% more dangerous. Any given year, if you take the skydive deaths and the raft deaths, typically there's more raft deaths. Commercially. These are commercial raft, deaths. So now we can take a look at, people don't know that. And, it doesn't mean that either rafting or skydiving is safe or dangerous. It just mentally, it's just good to know that like rafting, one of the biggest challenges is people don't take it seriously. They don't know that there was this risk. And the second they're in that river, you know what I mean? And they might be like, I did not sign up for this. So that's one element of the... See, I like this. Like, this isn't part of the waiver part of the safety talk, but it's how you can use... Like, you got to rescue yourself. Like, you got to be the one in charge. Like, because you can use, like, I wouldn't do this in a safety talk, but just in general, the principle here is like, guess what? You went skydiving tandem, and you know what happened? You just detached, all the straps came loose, and you're like 10 feet away from, like the skydive instructor. Skydive instructor's got that parachute on them. Like, they ain't going to die. But for whatever reason, like, you loosened up your harness and you just plopped right out of your harness. Okay. This is very typical. This is a 1-to-1 ratio. Like, if your life jacket falls off, you're almost as good as dead if you're, like, fall into the river and we can't pick you up immediately. Now, like, most times... Shoot, like if you fall in, we have precautions that, we run as a team. Hopefully we're going to pick up the pieces. But shoot, I've been on class 4 one-boat trips. I flip everyone. I ain't picking up anyone. You know what I mean? I already had to tell people, like, hey, you're on your freaking own. You know what I mean? And that can get down to, like, maybe you have a state law that says you can't do that. You know what I mean? But in this state, I worked in 3 states. I worked in Idaho, Washington, and Montana. Montana and Idaho, you can do as many one-boat trips as you want. You know what I mean? Even legally. A lawyer could nitpick that, but there's nothing in the bylaws that says, you know what I mean, you didn't do your due diligence. So when it comes down to it, it all comes down to you signing that waiver. You know it's risky. You know you're having fun, but at a high risk. And an even higher risk than skydiving. And if you don't know that, well, I would tell everybody on my boat, well, guess what? You should have gone skydiving today. You know what I mean? If you can do it in a fun way, you know what I mean? That's kind of like, that would be like the joke. Like, but guess what? We're a team. Like, we're not just strapped together and we're using the skydive instructor's brain to like trigger the chute at the certain time and do everything. You know what I mean? Like, you still have that guide, but that guide has to use you as the engine. You know what I mean? So it'd be like it would be like if you went skydiving, and guess what? Your skydive instructor is not going to pull your chute. Like, that's your job. All this, like, just imagine your skydive instructor don't have arms. You know what I mean? And it's literally when the time comes for you to pull that chute, because that's all you're thinking about, is that chute going to open? Well, guess what? You got to pull it. And so rafting is very similar. We have to use you as the engine. And in the skydive world, you're going to panic. You're going to be like, I have no idea, like, where to pull. Like, it's just like it's just everything looks like a handle. And okay, so that's a pretty good analogy. But yeah, rafting is an interesting thing because as a guide, I have to use you as the engine, and I have to use total psychology, whether you're gonna like paddle or not. You know what I mean? Like, it's, if you're not having a good time, guess what? You're paddling like halfway, like maybe less than halfway. Or maybe, you know, you're just like, you want to do as good as possible, but like you're just not, like, you didn't sign up to like be the engine. You know what I mean? No one really signed up for a raft trip to be like, oh yeah. So there's a lot of psychology there to like have as much fun and make sure that people are enjoying themselves. Like, people didn't sign up for rafting and think, oh yeah, this is going to be like a harder day than doing the bike at the gym. You know, cycling on a bike, that can be pretty easy, but also pretty hard. But when you sign up for a raft trip, no one's like, holy Toledo. Like, I got to paddle my way through all these rapids. And even when the rapids get big, that's like the time where I don't want to paddle, because it's like I need to like brace myself and hold on. So anyway, there's a lot of psychology there, and you're using a subpar engine. You know what I mean? Like this is where like a motor raft trip, because they're bigger, do a motorized raft trip down the Grand Canyon, you know, you're going to have statistically less likely chance of dying. But guess what? If that thing flips over, and it's always a guarantee. It's not a guarantee that it ain't going to flip over. I saw those motor rigs down there, and you know, you're just like, okay, I see that person. That motor rig guide's got it figured out, but that one is like, ooh, this might get sideways. And even though they're so big, they're still narrow. You know what I mean? Those things can flip like a pancake if they're sideways to some of those Grand Canyon features. So, and my goal is not to be like, yeah, you shouldn't go rafting. I think more people will go rafting if you know that you're like, yeah, we signed up. It's like, we're taking more risks than skydiving. Let's do this. Because if you know that, then you get pumped up. You know what I mean? You got some adrenaline going. So the first question that like I would ask, you know, my boat, or like in a safety talk, is who here, raise your hand if you're like, hell yeah, I'm ready to do this. I signed up for whitewater. I know I can fall out. And when I do, I'm going to be pumped. Like, that's a fair question. That's actually like a really good opening question to a safety talk. Because then, like, a quarter of the people raise their hand. You know what I mean? They're like, even if they don't even know, they're just like, yeah, that sounds like a good thing to raise my hand to. I'll look cool. Okay. But then, yeah, you have 3/4 of the people that are just like, wait, what? You know, instead of just starting like, hey guys, what happens if you fall out? I mean, if you start with that, people are going to, there's just a real tendency to be like, oh yeah, this is like an airplane. And this is when they say like, oh, this is when we crash in the ocean. We use our seat cushions, you know, as a nice little flotation device. And then we paddle to an island with a coconut. Maybe we find a soccer ball on the way. You know what I mean? And so that's what people are thinking. But it's just good to put it in perspective. To be like, hey, who signed up? Like, who here is the one that signed you up? Or who here is just like pumped? Like, raise your hand if you're like, heck yeah, I know we got some whitewater and we got some flat water. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever, it don't matter. All rafting takes place in Class 3 rivers, and you got those whitewater waves. And like who's here? Like, yeah, just ask that question. Like, yeah, anyone can pop out of the raft. So who here is like, if they pop out of the raft, they're going to be like, yeah, that's going to be the highlight of my day. See, there's many ways to say it. Like, if you guys pop out of the raft, who here, by show of hands, like, that's going to be the highlight of their day. They're going to be like, that sounds like a trip. Like, that's what I signed up to do. I wanted to go down a wave train, and maybe I get thrown out. Like, that's a possibility. That's a real simple possibility. But guess what? When I fall into that river, it's going to be like, hell yeah. I am ready for that. Like, this is why we signed up to go whitewater rafting. Because then you just divided the group in half. And you did it in like a really good way. Because half the people are like, no. I like brought my kids. And now you're just all pumped up that people can fall out. Well, it's still a good way because it phrases it correctly. You know what I mean? Like, because then you can be like, well, who here is not too stoked to fall out? Who here wants to stay in the boat? Okay, and then you could just go right into like how to sit in the boat. You could use that energy to say, well, guess what? So for you guys, you're definitely going to pay attention right now. Here's where you sit. And guess what? You're going to sit all the way on the outside tube. Raise your hand if you're like, I don't want to sit all the way on the outside tube. Well, guess what? You don't have a choice. But guess what? This is where you actually stay in the boat easiest. If you're on the inside, you get thrown out of the boat. But if you're already on the outside, guess what you do with your feet? You wedge them in nice and tight. You use your toes, and you can push them forward, and you can use you got 1 foot behind you, and you can push that backward. You're like a little tripod. You know, where's the tripod? Well, you reach out into the water and paddle. And if you paddle harder, you brace yourself in harder. So in those rapids, we really need you to paddle hard or efficient. But we need you to reach far forward, insert your paddle, and then use your entire body. And basically, we are an engine, we are a team. We do this together. If you're not paddling, the person behind you can't paddle, and maybe the person in front of you can't paddle. And guess what? Then you're going to be in that scenario where you're probably going to pop out. So if this is you, if you do not want to pop out today, like one of the most important things you can do is like pay attention right now, and then while you're like be that helper. You know what I mean? If the guide says like a command, you know, you can we all know that we can help each other out as a team. Some people up front can't hear very well. And you know, you can even we can find ways. You know what I mean? It might seem ridiculous like we're in kindergarten, but honestly, if you count out your strokes, you hear all four. We'll go 1, 2, 3. And we might not do this all day, but to get that rhythm, that's the most important thing. So how to stay in the boat? Well, you sit all the way on the outside too, and it's teamwork. It's really cohesive. Okay, and then it's leaning forward, use your entire body for those paddle strokes. Because guess what? You know what I mean? Like the stronger you are as an engine, you know, the more efficient and the more team effort we put into like getting it dialed in for the rapid. Now you can have some fun out there, but we only have 8 rapids. And the rapids take 30 seconds. This is so good because I've never even done this concept. Yes, there's going to be like a lot of paddling here and there. But at the top of each rapid, guess what? You have about 30 seconds. So it's like in cycling class where they're just like, go. And you're just like standing up and you're paddling hard and you're like, I don't think I can do it, but you can. You know what I mean? We're doing it as a team. You got everyone involved. Okay. That's a really good way to phrase it. Because honestly, every single rapid, I've GoPro'd them. It's like only 30 seconds. But like it feels like you're at the gym. And you're like, I can't paddle another stroke. And then it's crazy because you're like, I can't paddle another stroke and I can't fall in. Because if I fall in, I'm going to be real tired. And I'm already real tired. And so it's like, that's what makes rafting exciting. No matter what wave trains we're going through, it's like we're going to be putting some effort, you know, for 30 seconds to get through. You know, just plan. We might paddle the entire way to get through some of these rapids. Sometimes we only paddle like, you know, just a few times hard, like real hard. And then we take a break, and then we might paddle, you know, again real hard, and then we take another break. But yes, you can use your judgment. If we're in flat water, and yes, we are paddling, and you're like, oh, this is kind of tiring, so listen to your guide's commands, you know what I mean? But even just at the top of the rapid, just know about 30 seconds. That's top to bottom. And we give it 110%. Sometimes when you're done paddling, nope, there's still something below you that you don't see that your guide does. And we really need you to stay tip top. Now, if your guide says, all right, paddles up in the air, that's kind of your signal to be like, we got through that rapid. And then you take a breather. You know what I mean? Relax, loosen your feet, stay comfy. All right, so that's pretty good. That's pretty good because that really shows the emphasis. I've never just sat down and be like, well, what's the motivation factor? How do you get people, you have just a 3-hour trip, and people are statistical. They're just they can't break it down into they think they're going to die the whole time. You know what I mean? They're on a rafting trip, but they don't have enough energy to stay alert the whole time. Well, now you just we have 8 rapids. We have literally 8 rapids that you probably fall out of. Let's just say that. So for 8, so that's 4 minutes of your life today. We're going to have to teamwork and stay cohesive and paddle hard. It kind of breaks it down. I like that. And you just told that to the people that don't want to fall out. And you gave them a real good reason to stay motivated and paddle. The people that don't want to fall out, that didn't sign up for this, they're going to be the worst paddlers. You know what I mean? They're not going to use that energy and to a benefit. They're not going to be yeah, I'm scared, and then guess what? I'm just going to make sure we're all going to get dialed in. So that's a really good job of coaching. I'm happy with that. So I think it's time to move on now. All right, and then now you just talk about falling in. So that was good. None of this stuff has been from the liability perspective, but it's a safety talk, and it's just good to go over. I want to hear my thoughts after I record this. Okay, so we talk about falling in. I don't know, a lot's going on, but it's always I would go back to who's going to be excited to fall in? Okay, and then again, you could use that throughout the safety talk. Okay, by a show of hands, who's not excited to fall in? They're who wants to know, by a show of hands, let's say you can just say this. If you're not excited to fall in, by a show of hands, who's actually curious? Who really wants to know what they do if they fall in? Because if they know what to do and they have something to do, then they'll have that sense of safety, because it's just guess what? I want to know what to do. Yeah, because then you just set it up. Now you're yeah, those are the people that are going to listen. And you can even talk to them and even kind of see, you know what I mean? Because it's if the people that just want to fall in, you already set it up. You already made them feel important. You already made them feel hell yeah, when I fall in, I'm going to do everything right. And they might not. They might be the biggest babies out there. You know what I mean? I did pretty good. I had a group of firemen for my training trip, and I dump trucked them all. And yeah, I was kind of part of it, but they just thought that was the best experience. So they do. They fit in that category of who here signed up to go rafting? You know what I mean? Who here signed up to hit a big old wave and maybe tip out of the boat? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, yeah. So this really talks about, so if you fall in, so who wants to, and it's you could really actually use that to be yes, some of us want to fall out. That's why we signed up. But what do we not want as a team? What do we not want today to happen is if you fall out and we can't get you back in within a minute. You know what I mean? So that's why if you fall out, that's why you can talk about if you fall out, you're just going to be right next to the boat. I hope you swim to the boat. All the aggressive folks, this is for you. You know what I mean? You fall out. Well, as you're falling out, grab onto that perimeter line. That's what I do. If you're dude, I'm falling out, just grab for that perimeter line. And if you're already grabbing for the line while falling out, you're already kind of facing back towards the boat. Take a couple strokes, see if you can swim to the boat. Just grab on right away. You know what I mean? So you can use that aggressive energy to the people that want to be aggressive. And now you're talking to two different people. You know what I mean? You're just yeah, this is for the people that, yeah, you think you're gung-ho. And for the people that are timid, this is also for you too. Because if you fall out, you don't want to be in that water. You're like, that's going to be something scary today. Like, I'm not going to have a good time. And yeah, I agree. You might not have a good time, but that's why we're talking about it, so we can tell you exactly what you're going to feel. And this is where I would go into, like, yes, the water is frigid today. Like, you're dressed, like, kind of, like, you're dressed in, like, let's say they got, like, a wetsuit on. It's like, yeah, you're dressed so you don't die of hypothermia in like 20, you can spend a half hour in the water, and you're not going to die of hypothermia. But guess what? You're going to be absolutely frigid cold once you fall in. Like, even just saying, like, straight up that's what we're doing. Like, we actually stay nice and comfy when we're in the boat. But you aren't dressed to stay, like, warm. Like, you fall out, it's going to be cold. And you're going to be like, I did not sign up for this. But guess what? That's where we want to help you, like, say, yes, you did. This is what rafting is. That's part of it. It's kind of fun. And we want, like, that'll help you calm down. So instead of just saying don't panic, like, that's dumb. I would really get into that energy of, like, yeah, it's okay to, like, be like, ooh, this sucks. Like you can just use that energy. Like, the first thing would be, like, do, like, something with your mouth, like an O face of, like, this sucks. But, be conscious of, like, your mouth, because you need to breathe out of that. And you also need to close your mouth, because when you fall in, you don't want to just have a big old mouthful of water. And we're all pretty good at that. Like, our bodies are designed to, when we do fall out of a boat, we're going to hold our breath. Even if we didn't catch a big one, we're going to hold our breath, and we're obviously going to wait till our head pops up out of water. Now, on my safety talk, this would be a waiver thing. It says expect submersion. And I would say it's like 9 times out of 10, you're going to pop right up. I'd say even less. I would say 9 times out of 10, you're going to pop up in 3 seconds. Oh, that phrases it more correct. 9 times out of 10, if you fall out of a boat, you're going to pop up in about 3 seconds. But let's take a pause and count out 3 seconds. Here we go. 0, 1, 2, 3. You just popped up. Now, 3 seconds, that's a long time. And you're going to think that was 10 seconds. So you really got to focus and stay calm. If you fell out of the boat, hold your breath. You might have to wait a little while. You might have to wait what seems like 10 seconds. Now, could you be submerged for more than 10 seconds? Yes. Statistically, it doesn't happen often, but you can be submerged for up to 30 seconds. See, and I would, you don't have to get into the specifics of the liability of submersion, but you can say, you can't just say, yeah, you're going to pop up in 10 seconds, because there's classic videos. One is the Moab Daily Stretch, where just a private trip, and one of the passengers had a GoPro on his helmet, fell out. They fell out in just not even what a normal person would not know was a dangerous spot. And it's the exact things that this river, this Albertine Gorge, has. It has folding currents. It has a wave train that ends in swirling, just lakes of water, where you have all the water moving, and it has to go down. It just dives. So you have diving currents, like eddies that go downward. And so you can get sucked right to the bottom of the river. And that brings, you don't get into this in a safety talk, but our PFD only floats 15 pounds. Now, most of us weigh more than 15 pounds. So you're like, well, how the hell does a PFD work? Well, if you don't have one, you're buoyant in water. You know what I mean? Like, you let out your breath, you'll sink, but you take a big breath, then you'll float. So we're pretty neutrally buoyant. So 15 pounds is the weight of your head, and maybe a couple shoulders. You know what I mean? But not much more. Human head weighs maybe about 10 pounds, maybe 12, I don't know. So, you only have like an extra 5 pounds of your shoulder sticking up out of the water. But that's all the PFD does. That's why we all wear the same PFD. Because most of us have about the same size head. And that's just a cool little fun fact. That's a freebie on me. Okay, so and that's just good to know. That's good to know. No one puts on a flotation device like a PFD and just imagines that they're going to get sucked to the bottom of the river. But it does happen. If you go over a pour over, you're going to get down deep, and average you might be popping up in 7 seconds. It's a pretty good pour. Like, we're talking upper gully. You signed up to go to the upper gully, and you fall out at House Rock. Well, you might pop up, by Volkswagen, and that might only be 3 seconds. But if you go over Volkswagen, right on that seam, right on the eddy seam, well, you're going deep, and you ain't popping up for about 7 seconds. And that's why this brings up the other liability. And then what's minimum requirements for guides? Like, if we're saying, like, yes, this is risky, but we all signed up, and this is where I have to give you information. You know what I mean? So every rapid, I have to tell you that the rapid is coming up. Okay, perfect. So then it's actually a requirement. Because as a new guide, I'd be like, there is nothing exciting about this next rapid. It's got a dumb name. It might not even have a name. And then I'm not talking very much. I had a hard time guiding because I was a very quiet person, did not have social skills. And you don't, even today, Dave, you don't have social skills. These videos are evident of that. But you know what I mean? I'm like just joking. I'm working on it. You know what I mean? Trying to go from introvert to extrovert. Okay. But that was, because I looked up, like Canada has a whole document of like laws for guiding rafts. So if you look at other countries that have laws, like what do they require? So when the lawyer at the end of the day says like, well, did you were the guide, did you tell them that a rapid was coming up? You know what I mean? And it's all stuff that when it comes to court, all that's nitpicky. But as a new guide, you're like, whoa, there's so much psychology going on to make sure that these people signed up for a fun day. It would be like, you think an airline pilot's job is hard? Well, this is where, like, I'm surprised, like, it's interesting. Like, it definitely takes probably a person that's motivated and willing. Like, no one just, like, I don't think anyone just signs up to be a commercial airline pilot that doesn't think they can be a commercial airline pilot. But at the end of the day, you can get there within 1,500 hours. But if you look at Colorado, they are already starting to put assessments on like if you're guiding, like how do you get there? How do you get there faster? We can take a brand new person, and how can you run like the class 4, 5, like Pine Creek or the Numbers? Like even the Numbers is harder than I forget the one. Numbers is the middle, and maybe it was Pine Creek. I know Pine Creek's the hardest one. I don't know if. But anyway, they have documentation on this. I don't know if it was just from the company, but it's like you have to have 750 hours. That's at least half of becoming a commercial airline pilot. So that's a step in the right direction of like, you got to document those hours. And if you don't, just statistically, you just don't have the skill. Even though you have the motivation and the willingness, it just comes down to, and even if you already had the skill from paddling and you didn't document it, well, obviously it's just like, well, hit the river hard and you'll get there fast too. Let's see. So where was I going with that? It's just like, this is a concept that I liked from other states. Because like, when documented, when can this guide say like, hey, as a society, we know we want to go whitewater rafting. Well, guess what? You also don't want to pay too much to go whitewater rafting. It's a pretty cheap endeavor. You'll pay more for skydiving because you got the plane and you got two, you know what I mean? But when it comes to whitewater rafting, I mean, you're trying to get like a Groupon ticket, for under $50, $49.99 just for yourself. And I mean, if there's a snack included, you want it. You know what I mean? You want it. But I mean, even the company that I'm looking at, you can get a meal and do the same raft trip for about $70. I mean, it's just like, and $100, if you're doing the kind of the class 4 and you want to, do a run and get a meal, $100, $125, that's kind of the, and even that money don't go that far anymore. You know what I mean? And in just a few years ago, it was definitely, baseline was about $50-$55. And for the risk involved, you know what I mean? So it's just like, this is just an honest assessment of the raft industry. It's like, you don't want to pay a whole lot, so this is what we do. But the cool thing about the raft industry is it is just a lifelong passion. Even though I struggle with my social skills, and I might not guide very many rafts, the people, you know, that's what I just bring up. It's like there's going to be people with way less skill than me that are guiding rafts just because they are gung-ho. They are motivated. They're like, and you know, just within a weekend, I mean, within like, let's say a month of training, they can take their first trip. They can get that check off. You know, it's like, I've never done this before, but like, I think it's really cool. And within a month, you can just do it. Now, how many hours are in a 40-hour work week? Well, there's 40. So how many hours are in a month? I mean, that's only like 160. And how many hours do you think are going to be actually productive? Well, that's like 100. So we're really breaking it down to be like, you only have, I mean, does that make sense? Yeah, 8 hours in a day, 40 in a week. Like, you can get trained in within easily a month. So within 100 hours, like, you got someone taking a guided trip. You know what I mean? So that's where some of these state requirements are pretty good. Because, you know, if I interned the raft industry, and yes, I was super motivated, but I couldn't do the people skills. So, like, I could get them down, but my people skills were so lacking. Yeah, it definitely affected my ability to make good decisions going down those first few years. You know what I mean? Had I had to do like 750 hours or even, you know, 250 or, you know, just a set amount of hours, you know, of really guiding and coaching, and that would be good. Like any new raft guide would just benefit from just going down the river for fun for an entire year. Because it's an industry where, yes, if you want to, you don't have to have any prior experience. Because it's actually real difficult to get a lot of on-river time. Like, even the private boater might go 5 times a year. Because you got to drive to a river, it takes all day, and it's a pretty fun thing. Unless you live in like really cool and awesome communities that have a river just right there and you're going once a week, even then it's just like skiing. You'll just go like 10 times a year. And when it comes to like really crafting your skill, you just need to go more than that. You need to go every day for at least the season, which is only 3 months. So you're talking 30 days. And you need to go every day for 3 months. This is like, you know, 120 days. Let's just say it's 100 days. So like, and let's say you're only out there for a 3-hour trip. You do that's a lot of trips. Every day rafting, 3-hour trip for 100 days. That's only 300 hours of experience. You know what I mean? So like, yes, in the future, you would definitely have this standard where you're like, guess what? When you go home, you're gonna go work and bus tables. You know, you're gonna wash dishes at the restaurant, but you're gonna come to our raft company and you're gonna intern because it is the funnest. You know, you're basically going skiing for free. You know, you're gonna intern with the raft company. You're gonna get to go down with all the other guides in training, and by year 2, you're gonna be so dialed in and eager to take boats. Why? Is because you now know how to have fun. And then some people just do. Some people are minded where they're just like, I want to learn the skill and I already have the people skills and it's just going to be a fun time for both. Well, me, like, I'm not that way. And it's like, so, and not everyone's like mindset like me, but I can just see the benefit. Because even I can take really social guides and show them how to enjoy the river. You know what I mean? Like, when we go down, like, this is how you enjoy it. I do a lot of solo boating, and you just get such a rich, you know, feel, you know, for like, this is the quiet times. Like, rafting is very, juxtaposed, where you have like some of the rapids, even just class 3 with some stout water, you're just like, whoa, every rapid can feel just trying to get through. But then you kind of have the in-betweens. You know what I mean? Just kind of like the developing skill to be like, yeah, like I could run a river that just had one easy class 3 and the rest of the day was just enjoyable. But the same amount of attention needs to be presented for that class 3, let's say. Okay, so that kind of rounds out my perspective on the raft industry. But I'm a what is. You know what I mean? It's just like, and I got real pumped up because I think it's a lawyer that's making videos on YouTube that are kind of like, here's the scenario. But they're a little bit, I just want to be really opinionated because I can get my point across real fast. It's like very propaganda-ish. It's like, look at this rescue. Look where this person died. And it was like, look at the lines they take on this rapid. The guides can take multiple lines. Like, should they be able to? Well, in that scenario, it was Colorado, and it was the 11-year-old boy who he fell out in Big Drop. And guess what? His life jacket fell off. Now, I think it's a lawyer, so I'm just going to double down with my opinions and like get all aggressive. Don't have to be passive-aggressive, just be aggressive. So I'm just going to say, and if I'm wrong on this lawyer, I'm just going to, that would just be his nickname or whatever. I'm being real mean. I'm going to be name calling you shouldn't do. But name calling for a purpose. I'm bringing up a point. Is that the raft industry, or especially the online raft industry, just holds itself together with opinions. So here's my opinion. This lawyer wants to make videos on his own opinions. And that's exactly what I want to do. So here's my opinion. It's like we're equally matched. And so he says, like, should raft guides be, be able to take multiple lines? Be able to go to the left, down the center, down the right. Especially if there's an easier way through. So it's a class, so you can just set the stage. It's Colorado. It's a class 3. It hardly looks like nothing. It's a nothing burger. But just the next little corner, also the corner looks like a nothing burger. But there is a pile of boulders. Now, Colorado, I have not gotten the opportunity to run those watersheds. But I've done enough investigation of all the, I've just been like him. It's just like, oh yeah, here's a scenario. And there's tons of, for being part of the Rocky Mountains, there is more undercuts in those Colorado rivers than there are in these Montana rivers. You know what I mean? I was just like, the Rocky Mountain rivers typically, like glacial rivers, potentially don't have tons of undercuts. Like the undercutville is West Virginia. You know what I mean? I mean, you got entire caves underwater. Like half the river goes underwater and through things. Like in the western states, the river's on top of the river bottom. You know what I mean? You might get a foot entrapment. But on this outside corner, there was enough jumble of boulders that the kid got entrapped. His whole body got shoved underneath the water. Well, guess what? When your life jacket pops off, you're neutrally buoyant. And yeah, let's say you already aspirated water. You're less than neutrally buoyant. And you're going to get stuck on whatever. And all the water pushes to the outside. You're literally going to hit those boulders on the outside. And the boy got stuck. So I'm making a total guess, or I'm assessing it. I'm assessing it if it happened to anyone else and their life jacket fell off. That is a real serious scenario where, my 2 cents is, I know this guy's, maybe he's a lawyer, maybe he's not. But my 2 cents on what you would do in this scenario. If I was using this scenario as a teaching moment, it's one of the things that I would actually, my opinion would be as a, and you don't have to do it. You don't have to be change the world. But I need a Supreme Court law that says every life jacket needs a crotch strap so that thing physically can't come off. Because then, so that's the scenario. I was just life jackets are coming off people. People are getting more pear-shaped. You know what I mean? I don't need to beat around the bush. It's we live in America. And you know what I mean? And it's just and it just brings up the issue. It's no one's shaped like a block of wood, just like a dowel. No one's shaped like a life jacket fits on a dowel real easy. But this kid, he also wasn't, yeah. So, I guess he was a little, from the picture, shoot, yeah, I don't want to make this personal, you know what I mean? But yeah, you have to use science and actually what happens to actually get down to solutions. So yeah, he was a little bit chubby, but that's it. Like, I'd imagine this life jacket could have stayed up, but maybe that was an issue. You know, it took me actually bringing up that point to be like, whoa, I never even thought of that. That even like a young kid that might be a little bit overweight, but I don't think that was 100% this scenario. But if the life jacket fell off, it's like, as a company, like, we take this seriously. There is no life jacket that does not get checked. Like, it's not a law. I mean, well, in Canada it is. So if you take these laws, like there's this, and I keep saying Canada. So I went online and it's like Trans Canada. It's like I don't know if that's the vacationing website to Canada, but it says if you come up here, we have like these industries and we have standards. And that's why I like even the death videos in Canada about British Columbia has got all those great hey, working deaths in British Columbia. We're trying to make sure the lumberjacks don't all die from going, setting some standards. Be like, you can cut down as many trees as you want. You can domino them over 10 at a time, but do them in this way so you don't domino yourself. Okay. But yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, like, I even wear a crotch strap. I know from my perspective that if I'm going down, like, I make sure my life jacket's tight as nails. You know what I mean? Just like tighter than a bug, in a rug. And so, there's things where I'm just like, yeah, but I'm not immune to my life jacket getting ripped off. Like, Class 5 kayakers, their whole body is getting ripped out of their kayak. I mean, the river, when it comes to some of these features, can be so amazingly powerful. That's why we do this. It's just like, I want to put myself in that and come out the other side with another breath in my lungs. Okay. So I mean, I have a crotch strap for my PFD, and I really appreciated it because I even went out to the ocean, and and took my raft in the ocean, and that'll suck. That feels like it'll suck. The ocean. That feels like it'll suck the life jacket right off you. But anyway, so that's why I even would wear a crotch strap. No, I have taken it off. And when I took it off, it's like when I was guiding. I don't know why I took it off. I don't know. I didn't want to get so OCD that I'm adding every safety bell and whistle that that's actually going to kill me. Because yes, you have this other strap and that might get caught. And it might have chafed my dry suit and I didn't want to rub a hole in my dry suit. So you have all these different scenarios coming up. But if it's an oversized person, or any person or the life jacket, you're just like, dude, this thing's like riding up near like the top of your head, like near your neck, and your body's pear-shaped, and that's fine. It's no discrimination here, but just physics. It's literally physics and science. I would be real nervous or worried about those life jackets coming off. And then so that's where I just say, well, it's just the raft industry. It's like you sign the waiver, and yeah, these life jackets, like it's not my job to make the life jacket statistically not get ripped off you. You know what I mean? And even for a verbal waiver, all I have to say, is like, yes, these life jackets, I mean, you could even just say it like that, but you don't. That's what I make this video for. Because at the end of the day, when, if I'm in court and I'm arguing for the raft industry of that, what is. It's like, you know what I mean? It's like, let's not use this case to sue a raft company. Let's, if there is a better future, to be like, yeah, this is the industry standards. But like I said, the raft industry is, or at least the online raft industry, is put together by opinions. And you'll have contradicting opinions. Do you put a crotch strap from the front of the life jacket to the back? That might get hung up on 100 different things. They might be in the river, especially in the river. Like, holy Toledo, that strap is never going to be tight. So this would be like a total optional thing that you couldn't even do legally. You couldn't even be like, because you can't modify a life jacket. So everything has to be at that. And then guess what? Like, the Coast Guard does all the regulations for life jackets, but the Coast Guard is not an inland service for the most part. Like, they might regulate all the life jackets on lakes and rivers, but there is no governing body that says, if you literally maybe from a legalistic standpoint want to put a crotch strap on a life jacket, you better buy them from like NRS, already approved by the Coast Guard that this is an okay thing. And then at the end of the day, you're just saying, it's like, well, you approved it and like there was an okay reason to use it on a river. But if you have shallow rivers and that crotch strap is loose, and you're going down and you get caught on a stick, you can literally catch yourself. Now, how often is that scenario going to happen? That scenario is going to happen less often than the amount of times life jackets are getting ripped off passengers. It's like literally every time a life jacket gets ripped off the passenger, I bet you it's a roll of the dice. I mean, maybe we don't have statistics of like raft companies being like, oh yeah, remember that time? Like that life jacket got ripped off that client and then we actually had to fish them out. And they lived. But honestly, I just don't think that's the case. It is like rappelling off a cliff and you decided to loosen your harness and you just fell out of your harness. You know what I mean? It's just like, you can't have that happen. And that's why I like to use the other analogies. Like when you are rock climbing and your guides and your rock climbing guides, like you should tighten up this harness as best as possible. Like this is how snug it needs to be. Snug as a rug. And it should feel good. The snugger it is, it should feel like you're safer. Because or use that to your advantage. We don't want people having breathing issues with the PFDs on them. But it's got to be pretty snug. That their diaphragm, when they breathe out, is putting pressure, like on the life jacket. Kind of filling it up like a little balloon and then coming back to a normal shape. And what I would also do, like here as a company, what I would require is that you make sure, this is so good. Because it's making videos like these that you can actually come to normal friggin' solutions. You know what I mean? Because every dry life jacket, the second it gets wet, all the straps just loosen up. Like let's say 50%. I mean, it kind of feels that way. Like me as a guide, I'm never gonna, statistically, my chances of falling out of my life jacket are real low. Because I put it on, even if I know it's dry. First thing I do, before getting in the boat, I get all wet. One, because I'm dressed for the river. So I can go out there. I always dress for the river where, unless it's I'm teaching, and I remember it was in April. When I did this guide training that's going to come up. Just as a showing of what I do. I dressed for the weather. It was sleeting. It was going to sleet snow all day. And it's like morning. It's 9 a.m. and we're at the river doing the safety talk. And, I didn't make a big deal of it. But I go in and I spend about 5 minutes in the water. Swimming around, making sure I'm doing my thing. You know what I mean? And I get out and it was a cold day. It just got colder and colder. Now, I didn't get too cold because I dressed for that. Other people that day, yes, they got cold. Even one of the guys, not to mention names, got cold. You know what I mean? A raft took a swim, and we had to, it wasn't a hypothermic situation, but we had enough gear to take care of that, and we were in a situation where we were able to get back. But that brings up a whole nother topic of first aid, is I'm a big fan of a company taking hypothermia seriously. Where if you're stuck on a river, you could be stuck for 10 hours, It doesn't take much where people can't walk out of a scenario. And even if it's just one or two and you can get the rest of the group out. But keeping people warm. All right, kind of diverged. So I was talking about, dressing. Yeah, and how I dress warm. And I dress to get in the river, and I dress to actually get my life jacket wet. So then I do tighten it down. And then once your life jacket's wet, you can tighten it down so much better. So I think that would be a good idea. Especially on a hot day. If it's 100 degrees, you douse the life jacket in cold water, you have the person put it on, because you want them to get wet anyway. If they're already going to be cold with this wet life jacket, and I think that might be a scenario. Maybe it starts to stink and you kind of want them dry anyway. I don't know. But But the other thing you can do, like even if you're getting real technical like that, you don't have to get the whole life jacket wet. You can just get the straps wet. So you can have a little bit of water and dip the life jacket in like like tip it one way and then dip it in the other way. So you're just getting the straps. And once those straps are wet, I mean, I guess it's beneficial to get the whole life jacket wet, but it's the straps. The straps really loosen out. Dry straps will hold, they'll just go slack when they get wet. So that would be a really good way to keep life jackets on people. Because that scenario happens all the time. We put them on dry, and we tighten them dry. We check them dry, and they're checked. But once those people fall in the water, they're already 10%, 20%. I mean, you could do a scientific test and be like, yeah, this life jacket's loose. Like if you take all the people that you thought were nice and snug as a bug in a rug and checked for their life jackets. You had them like go submerged, and then you saw how much pressure it took to just rip them off. I bet you it would be astounding. So from a liability perspective, you can always say that. That might be actually one. It's like, yes, it's like this life jacket's not wet, but just know that once it does get wet, it does get looser. So if you want to make yourself more safe, we can just make sure that like you get it wet and then recheck it. I don't know how, you're not going to say that's crazy because like no one wants to get all the way submerged. But it just brings up it just kind of rounds out that topic of like if the life jacket falls off, you're as good as goner. Like, you know what I mean? And it don't matter if you're an 11-year-old boy or, 111 or anywhere in between. It honestly, even like probably decent swimmers, the second they get in that river, they're just like, nope, did not sign up for this. And yeah, it's a losing game without a life jacket. You need that life jacket on you. So that rounds out my opinion of that lawyer using that video. A video of about a scenario where a life jacket fell off a passenger. At the end of the day, that's all it was. A life jacket falls off a passenger. That passenger drowns. Now, I don't think anyone knows where that passenger, 11-year-old boy, drowned before that curve. Because if you don't have a life jacket, you don't have that extra. Like even people with life jackets, this is actually one. It's like, why do people die in the river? Well, one is because it's terrifying and they're panicked and they don't realize that every wave they go through hits them in the face and they will choke on all that water because they're just mouths open, breathing hard, and they don't know how to time their breaths. So from a liability standpoint, and this is on every safety talk, it says breathe in between the waves. And so that's just really good to know from a liability perspective, is to make sure people know to breathe through the waves. And that's always something that gets, even the most new guy doing a safety talk will always probably mention, breathe in the troughs. So like check. And it gets back to, we're just wasting our breath for a whole hour on this. But we're not. We're getting to some pretty good solutions. But to even do this safety talk in 12 minutes, I was breaking it down for one sentence. So right here it says, breathe in waves and troughs. Let's see if I can think of a sentence to say. And we already talked about the defensive swimming position. So after I talk about that, I can just say... that's why I just like verbatim. Like, just even reading the sheet, it says, all right, my sheet says, breathe in wave troughs. You just say, raise your hand if that makes sense. Raise your hand. Does everyone know to do that? I mean, because that's communicate. That's kind of what I got just from right here. It's like, we're already 3 minutes in. And we're getting to this point. They might be asleep. You know what I mean? So you can actually just ask a question. Be like, okay. And you already did the check. That's all it says on the sheet of paper. So that gets down to like if you are having a verbal waiver. If the safety talk is at least minimum a verbal waiver, why not just write in the shortest sentence possible where it's just easy to read. And so it says, where you can just say, my paper says... breathe in wave troughs. And actually says, my paper says breathing in wave troughs. So it sets it up like you got to explain it. So I would just make that subtle change. And And then it says the next bullet point right next to it, expect submersion. And I would just do one bullet point at a time. You know what I mean? It's fine if it's a sub point, but I would just have very verbatim statements where you're just like, even for helmets and life jackets, it says equipment check, helmets/life jackets. Like the one sentence for life jacket is, it is your responsibility to make sure your life jacket was checked by a guide. And I would just put it in the word tightened. It is your responsibility that your life jacket has been checked and tightened by a guide. So check this out. Like you're a family and you got some, you're responsible for your party. Well, guess what? Your ears are going to get perked up and be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, did my son or daughter or like my family members get checked? Did my friends that I signed up to go whitewater rafting and they're just going because I want to go? You know what I mean? So there is some psychological things there where you got to put the responsibility on them. Half the safety talk is being like, guess what? When you fall out, there's not much. I mean, I can't teach you from there. I can verbally give you commands and cues, but we already went over them in this safety talk. You know what I mean? You can't teach, once that scenario, once that ball of snow starts rolling down the mountain. Okay. But yeah, that's a really good point. So yeah, because I wanted to do breathing in wave troughs, and then expect submersion. All right, and even expect submersion. So there's many ways to do this. You can just say a blanket statement of saying, breathe in wave troughs. Your head can go under. It's like breathe in wave troughs because why? Is because when your face, like your head goes through the waves, it doesn't go over. Your body will literally go through the waves. And you might not pop up and you're underwater. And the next time you're going to be above the water again might be up to 3 seconds. We call that submersion. So then you're explaining what submersion is. And I think your body going through a wave is the easiest visual. And then you can be like, yeah, there's other places, like the river has places where it plunges over. Like we call those pour overs. Anything, water going over a rock or something like that. Where then this would be a sub-bullet point because people need to know that yes, it can be, on average, you might get 10 full seconds of submersion. And I don't know if you throw in that caveat of because this river you can't. There is a possibility. It's never happened before, but it's happened to the guides. 30 seconds. So it's just kind of like once in a blue moon, someone gets 30 seconds. And maybe they don't want to know that. You know what I mean? Because that's just inducing fear. And the second you are in that scenario where you're holding your breath for 10, well, guess what? You'll probably hold your breath for 30. Just the way, it's not submersion that kills people. But interestingly enough, a lot of people drown just by going through the rapids. Like when they're swimming, we call it flush drowning. And it's probably not because they got 10 seconds of downtime and just couldn't hold their breath long. What happens in most all the scenarios is they can't time their breathing. So from a waiver perspective, you don't need to tell them, a horror story of getting 30 seconds, of submersion. It never happens, and when it does, you know what I mean? Hopefully, time's on their side. They took a deep breath and they're holding for 10, and for whatever reason, their mind shuts off and they thought it was 10 and actually it was 30. And they pop up and take a breath. Okay. But literally what happens? So let's talk about what, because this is, there's a few scenarios that are just oh yeah, this happens all the time. One is life jacket falls off. Yeah, good is gone. Now the other scenario that we want to really work on as a rafting industry is flush drowning. Because let's just make up a number. Half of drownings are due to flush drowning. It's not that high, but it's a big portion. It's a big portion of people just swimming in they got flung out, and then somewhere between getting popping up and going through the waves, they choke on water and they drown. They die. You know what I mean? Don't have to sugarcoat it. But it's not because they popped out of the raft and couldn't get their first breath of air. like, and I might just be totally making that up, but I'm not. Like, I'm probably using some pretty good opinionated science and saying it's because they didn't time their breath. Like, I've done swiftwater rescue, and I get to do it almost every year, kind of teaching it or like helping out with some of these companies, swiftwater rescue. And yeah, I do the swim through like the tiniest of rapids, the class 2-iest of glueiest class 2 rapids. Like, it's just class, you know what I mean? Class moo. I don't know. I'm just trying to make words that rhyme with 2. Okay. But going through that rapid, I take a wave in the face, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm like choking to death. And I'm so glad it's only class 2, because it takes like 3 or 4 seconds to cough out all that water and make sure I can clear my freaking lungs and get another breath. And it's just like, in those scenarios, I get so nervous just because I'm like, holy Toledo. Like I'm, I stamp myself as class, I'll just say class 4, but it's always fun. I'm class 5. You know what I mean? All the class 5 people, you should call yourself class 6. I mean, if you're just going to make something up, why not just make up a bigger number? But, it's like, I'll just say, well, whatever. I'm class 4, baby. You know what I mean? It's like, I should be able to handle this. But, like, I'm just like, whoa. So my mind goes like, whoa, I can't handle it. Like, yeah, the newbie ain't handling it. The clients aren't. Like, that's going to suck. So that's where we do that. We teach them. We say, yeah, it's going to suck. Like, yeah, so my other opinionated, like, no one's going to listen to this safety talk for an hour and 6 minutes. It's more of a lecture. To be like, whoa, you're breaking down every point in, like, a realism way. But, and you just don't do that. That's why, like, I shouldn't do the safety talk. Yeah, or I'm practicing. I have no idea the psychology of safety talks. I'm just showing you my opinion and where I'm at. And I'm interested in, yeah. Okay. But the other, if you can go to the IRF, International Rafting Federation. Now, this is my opinion. That's just a made-up name. Okay. And that's fine. They're trying to do an industry standard. They're doing just what I'm doing with my opinions is they're doing with their opinions. Like I said, the raft industry is just sewn together with opinions. But hopefully, we take science. But yeah, you can't just use all science. It's like an organism. It involves psychology, philosophy, science, physics. It involves everything. The whole show. You're dealing with people. You're dealing with a lot of, even just that. That's an equation. Like, spirituality has got to be in there somewhere. But anyway, the IRF's got some really good. Anyone who's going to be like the first voice out in the water, they've thought it through. You know what I mean? Like just the random opinion on YouTube, well, maybe they haven't thought it through, and that's fine. But we enjoy it. You know what I mean? That's why we're sewn together. We're connected with all these opinions, and I like that. Okay, so but here's my opinion with the IRF. It's like it's made just by like 2 or 3 people. So you're taking 2 or 3 like guides, and maybe just one. You know what I mean? It's like the guy that I'm just thinking about. He does a pretty good safety talk. Is it too long? Sure, it's 20 minutes long. Is it too long? Is it too theatrical? Yes. I'll just straight out say my idea of a safety talk is getting it down to a verbal waiver. Like, you got to get that verbal waiver out of the way. And then, yes, the rest of the day is crafted on education, on teamwork, on like, here's your guide. Do one, see one, explore, dip your toes in. Every experience is going to be down that path. But every day is different, and every day we can't have that organic approach to everything. So the human brain can only it can't handle that 20 minutes. I couldn't. You know what I mean? Like, it's good. It's good in the sense that every person who thinks their safety talk is good. And I've already got the self-awareness that I was just like, yes, I will never have a good safety talk because I always think my safety talk is good. And guess what? Under my litmus test, no. It is like every year I want to drastically change it. It's just like, but maybe it fit for that day. You know what I mean? And it gets down to like, hey, if people are excited to listen to you talk for 20 minutes, I can't imagine. Because even this guy that I'm imagining, so I don't mind, throwing my, because people can rip me apart. I need to develop thicker skin too. Like, that's a very important thing for me in my life right now. But you just use common sense. Like, you videotape your safety talk. Like, that's why I make this on video, because I can just listen to myself and I'll grow so much as a person. But literally, I would videotape that guy giving a safety talk and have a split screen, him animating his safety talk. He does an amazing safety talk. Now, my only thing is like verbatim the heck out of your safety talk and just cut it to 5, and 5 minutes means 10. So his 10 minutes means 20. And it kind of ends up maybe sometimes being 25 minutes. That's a whole class lecture. It's too long. And I would do a split screen where you're just showing everyone else. And you're like, look at that guy. He is tuned out like the entire time. You know what I mean? So you really didn't even need to say anything to him. You know what I mean? So like, you know, I would have like a percentage scale of like, yeah, this person is actually listening right now. This person is just listening to your jokes. Yeah, so, but the solution of a verbatim verbal liability, you know, warning ain't that good either. But it's from that perspective that I think when you're teaching new guides of what is actually required of you, it goes back to that. I like that Canada. It says your guide is required to tell you that you're approaching a rapid, and it is required to tell you what the hazards of this rapid are. And it's required to tell you then also like swimming directions, what happens if you fall out of the boat. That's the essence of a safety talk. It's telling you, it's the safety talk, doubling down back to the original, is talking about self-rescue. It is like, yeah, when you pop out of that boat, yes, hopefully we have this dialogue of communication. And yes, we're going to learn that right now. But we might not. And you might be on your own. So then you're going to have to rescue your, you know what I mean? It's like you signed up for this. I don't know. Let's see where I was going with that. Let's see. I was talking about a safety talk being like a verbal waiver. And, yeah. I mean, that's kind of intense if it's just a verbal waiver. Oh, yes. But it gets down to teaching new guides. And, that Canada. That's why I like that. Is because as a company, as a boss of a company, or a trip leader as a company, we can come together and we don't have to put our lives under the microscope. But we can have those questions like, well, did we check all the boxes? Like, did you forget to tell them about the hazards at this rapid? You know what I mean? Did you tell the people what to do if they fell out at Tumbleweed? You know what I mean? I don't know. You know what I mean? Or whatever. And if you didn't, it's at least like, well, that's the minimum. As a company, we're going to sit down and be like, you have to at least tell them the rapid name. Because if you tell them the rapid name, then you told them the rapid is coming up. And then you need to tell them what happens if what they need to expect. Even if it's just like, yeah, this one should be, hey diddle diddle, down the middle, have some fun, hit some waves. You know what I mean? Little wave train. So that's what we got for this first one. You know, it's even a big one. It's a big wave train, actually, yeah. Have fun. But, so, most rivers always have some easy warm-up rapids, and then like maybe halfway through you got like the meat and potatoes. So on the wave train, you can also say, hey, if you fall out, you can use it as a teaching moment to be like, what are you going to expect if you fall out at the top of this wave train? It just gets their mind going. They're like, whoa, I did not want to imagine me falling out at the top of this wave train, but since you said it that way, that's all I'm thinking about, is if I fell out at the top of this wave train. And then you can pause for about 10 seconds. Be like, well, and if no one answers, that's fine. You got a quiet group. You can be like, well, this is what we expect. If you fall out at the top, like I said, you're going to have to breathe through all those troughs. Your body and head is going to go through every single wave for about 1, 2 seconds. Then you're going to pop up. Maybe just for 1 second. You're going to have to breathe in and out and take another breath. Okay, see how I just took like 5 seconds to explain the simplest of rapids? But because I said you're going to fall out at the top, I got that mental, thing going where they're just like, dang, I did not want to fall out of the top of this rapid. And guess what? You already set it up for success because no one's going to fall out in that class 3 easy rapid. They're going to have a fun time. But when they get to the bottom, they're going to feel like they're this level of success. They're like, whoa, I didn't fall out. And this is taken from guides of the Upper Gauley. Never was an Upper Gauley guide, but I got to purchase a ticket. I got to go down like 5 or 6 times. I was in the East Coast twice. Could I have gone down myself? Sure. But did I consider the dangers to be high enough where I threw in the towel? I was like, you know what? I don't mind just enjoying the day. Being part of the raft industry in some way. And the one thing that I really appreciated that was spot on, it's not even a Washington law. West Virginia. And West Virginia does have guide laws. I don't think this is in it. This was like only Canada says you gotta tell them that they're entering a rapid and what to do. But on that Upper Gauley, every guide's going to be like, yes, if you fall out here, this is your swim direction. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, dude, swim left. Like everything's going to the right towards that undercut. Like you can't swim to the left shore hard enough. You know what I mean? So just swim left. And other times it's like, no, you fall out here, you want to stay right in the middle. Like don't go left or right. Like get back to the boat. But see, then when you get through the rapid, you're like, just have a feeling of success. And you're like, heck yes. So that's one way to educate and make sure people feel like they were successful getting through the rapids. All right, we're over an hour and 15 minutes in, and in the safety talk, we're like in the first 3 minutes, okay? But I think that's the setup for most everything else, you know what I mean? So what does it say next? It says, guide will point positive. So yeah, that can just be a verbatim, you can have one sentence and then have 2. But this brings up the point, is like when the safety talk goes on too long, the person giving the safety talk probably feels like, well, I think the first way I said it, they didn't understand. So now I need to say it in like 3 different ways and use about 10 sentences. Well, just from like a time perspective, I've gone through this entire safety talk and basically just added 1 sentence for each, and it took 12 minutes. And I honestly think that's way too long. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It brings up the scenario where one of the companies I worked for, it was real good. I liked it. It was in Washington. We ran a river that had like a class 4 plus, maybe even virgin class 5. It was pretty good. Yeah, we had every time you ran it, you had to take full precaution, and we even made people scout it. That's the liability thing. We make people scout it, and then they given a choice. Their choice ain't that great. It's like climb up a steep ass bank up to a railroad track, walk along a live railroad track, and then walk back down, construction boulders to get back to the river. And, and then you can do it that way if you want. No one took that route, but at least it was an option. Because that actually brings up a good point, and I have no idea to this answer. Because at the end of this, it says everyone still want to go. And I think there is a caveat that, yes, so this is such a good point. Because I would never, this in this safety talk, and I like it. Like, does everyone still want to go? And, because the last part of the safety talk is any questions, concerns, and does everyone still want to go? I wouldn't phrase it like, if you're going to say everyone still want to go, that's still, like, from a lawyeristic perspective, like, yeah, you asked, but did you? But yes, you did. You were part of the safety talk, and, colloquially, can you make that a joke? I think at the end of the day, the whole idea is putting this under the litmus test of a lawyer. I just got real fired up, hopefully just more aggressive than passive aggressive with what I thought was the lawyer, just using YouTube, and that's fine. That's fine, but it's just like okay, so let's go back to the scenario. That's why I was fired up this morning. So the 12-year-old died on, I think it was Browns Canyon, and it was on Big Drop. Just simple pimple class 3, but then there is an undercut around the corner. Now that undercut's just a jumble of boulders, and yeah, sure. I mean, it's not like a death sieve, but plenty of scenarios where even like there are more dangerous places. What I'm saying is the Colorado River system, and all the different Arkansas, the Colorado, all the different stems, they actually have legit undercuts where like, yeah, this is where a guide went underwater and like we had to like cut the dam. We had to like basically get some scuba equipment to get them out. And that's a fully life jacketed, passenger. So it's like, yeah, that there is some undercut dangers that are real. And I don't know, maybe I'm just looking at this one, and I got a pretty good assessment of like, C1, and okay, I get it. Because even in this video, they showed a lower flow. And yeah, there were some big boulders and some gaps. But I think had that passenger, this 12-year-old boy, had a life jacket on, probably 99.999% they do not get undercutted on that corner. They just they float on the surface and they just get bypassed real easy. I mean, it's not like had there been a tree on the undercut. See, wood and debris, like wood creating undercuts, those can just grab you out of thin air. But I think I'm just using my opinion and kind of my assessment is like a neutrally buoyant passenger that has no life jacket. Yeah, they're gonna get stuck on any corner. You know what I mean? The first thing that's actually going to stick them, that's where they're going to be. Like anytime a person dies in the river from not having a life jacket, are they miles downstream? No, they're just around the next bend, caught in the next thing. You know what I mean? They're not very far away. And statistically, that might be true, or just I'm just making stuff up, or I'm just thinking in that right direction, maybe. Okay. But yeah, I got all fired up because it was just using that as a platform to come up with other opinionated scenarios. And that's fine. I love scenarios. I love opinions. But when you're, at the end of the day, he wasn't open-minded about saying, yeah, this is just my opinion and I want to hear yours. I don't know. It's like that helps because someone actually was there, participated in trying to do a live bait rescue to even just, because you got time. Like, even though you have a person that drowned, you identified where they were, and you might have up to 90 minutes to resuscitate. That cold water, you get cold water, it's just the way it works. You can resuscitate people. I mean, the longest might even be up to 4 hours. But even that 90-minute window is still good to go. You know what I mean? Heavy CPR if you can actually extract them and bring someone back to life. But I was appalled that, I'm just using my opinions. What I see is a lawyer that probably has a little bit of raft experience, and it's fun. It's fun to have opinions. And I really like it, too, to have opinions. That's why I'm doing this. But I also want other people to comment and be like, no, you're kind of short-sighted there. Because, yeah, I'm instantly going to not get 2 nights of sleep. And be like, yeah, your other opinion. Like, I have real thin skin, so that's what I'm working on it. You know what I mean? But so I was just shocked because I was like, whoa. He was using this full rescue. He could have cared less about the incident. All he was using it was a platform to say, don't go down the left or right, or should you be restricted to the safest line. Well, at the end of the day, all 3 of those lines end at that outside corner. And even the most difficult, I get it, but yeah. At the end of the day, like looking at what he was saying is like, yes, if there is a hazard, if you take the line that's less likely to dump people out of the boat, sure, that's going to be statistically safer. So I agree with that. You know what I mean? But to just double down and say that this scenario could have been prevented. Well, yes, then it does. It fits that category. Had that boat gone on the inside line and that line been statistically, shown to not dump people out of the boat, then, yeah, that brings up the safety talk. It's like if you stay in the boat, your chances of drowning are just almost none. Like, a wave's not going to hit you in the face and then you're going to choke. That probably happened once in a blue moon. Blue universe, you know what I mean? I have no idea. But But yes, there is this scenario where, and I even get nervous. It's just like every time my boat flips, I have enough years of experience that I'm just like, well, it feels like, because it's statistics. It's like I've done this long enough where it seems like the statistics game feels like a flip of a coin. You know what I mean? Like I've been in the game, where this is the flip that's going to happen. So it turns like a very low risk thing of just something falling out of the boat or a boat flipping into you're like, man, I hope no one got caught on a perimeter line. I hope no one's underneath the boat. I just don't want that to feel like a flip of a coin every time a boat flips. That would be maddening. And I've been there. It's like sometimes I just can't handle it. I'd rather do educational videos and take all the risks on my own, to be just a solo boater. You know what I mean? So it's just like, but that's just my perspective. So at the end of the day, going back to this incident, sure, yeah, 3 people fell out, 1 life jacket fell off, and that's the person that got piled into the rocks and drowned. But I can't make the assessment of... I'm going to make the assumption that they drowned before they got submerged. I'm just making that. It doesn't matter. Because, yeah, there's plenty of opportunity for that person to still be alive, and then they got, like, undercut. But your chances of getting undercut without a PFD, that's also a statistic. Like, if you're on the upper gully and you don't wear life jackets, no one wears life jackets. And like, let's say you're going down insignificant, and then like you get up into that slanted undercut at the bottom insignificant without a life jacket. Yeah, you might go up against that face of that thing and disappear forever. Plenty of the human body is not even a log. A log floats real nice. A log probably floats better than us with a life jacket. A log has got like twice the buoyancy. I mean, people don't know that. And actually, I'm just glad I mentioned that. Because I've always wanted to make a video on that, and this is kind of that, video within a video. It is like from science class, a log might be like a buoyancy of 0.5. And realistically, it might be 0.7. I don't know. It might be 0.8. Maybe even 0.9. But if you take the human body that weighs over 150 pounds and you put 15 pounds of flotation on it, then you only have something that's 0.85 buoyancy. You know what I mean? Like that sucks, because half buoyant, like a log floats half of its body, half of the log is floated out of the water. So yeah, you can have a log that's 50% buoyant. Now don't get me wrong, you see submerged logs, they ain't floating halfway out of the water. So maybe they are about the same. We are, even with PFDs, we're very similar to that log. Well, then that's I guess what I'm trying to get at is if we don't have a PFD, we're more like a rock. You know what I mean? We're a neutrally buoyant rock tumbling down the surface of the river, where even a log has more buoyancy. And you even see the logs, they're not floating high in the water. They look like they're going, over a wave, and they're getting submerged completely. Well, that's us with a life jacket. So you just imagine us without a life jacket. Like, we are literally a tumbling stone. Like, yes, we're neutrally buoyant, but just neutrally. That means we can be neutrally buoyant on the bottom of the river just as much as on the top at the surface. So all I'm saying is, like, if you're taking a scenario and you're not, he didn't even mention that fact, and that was the craziness. It's just like, you're going to get so much blowback on this, because even the person that was there is like, you're missing so much of what actually happened. And that he didn't even mention the life jacket falling off. But that's where I just like, yeah, I wrote my little piece, and then I was like, I deleted it. And then I just went back and be like, I just typed in, life jacket fell off, period. You know what I mean? End of story. Comment. Send it out. Like just give a little truthful fact. You know what I mean? And I don't mind YouTube being YouTube. Even just, knowing that people like opinions, and I'm making this video, and it's juicy. And it gets views maybe. I don't know. Maybe I was just thinking, I just wanted to make a raft channel that's just all about opinions. I mean, I think that's Northwest Rafting. You know what I mean? That's the Gear Garage. It works. It's a success. Like, they should be doing that thing till, 500K views, 500,000 subscribers, just opinion it out. They should actually get more, just absurd with opinions. You know what I mean? I mean, like, I'm just saying, like, You can use facts, but if you're looking for views, go opinion, 100%. If you're trying to like break the mold on YouTube. So that was so interesting because that guide, he says, yes, I was part of that rescue, and the lawyer basically says, well, he's like, oh, I'm so sorry that you were part of that, and I know it can be like a very traumatic experience, and I hope you get counseling. And it's just like, whoa, dude. He's trying to use psychology. He's trying to like double down on all the reverse psychology crap. You know what I mean? Like he's a lawyer trying to come up with like, and it just seems like propaganda at that point. It's just like, whoa. Like a reporter would do the opposite. Like let's say you're like, oh, I want to do a report on this rescue. And then this person comes to my video and they're like, hey, I was actually there. You should just be like, whoa, dude, if you don't mind, can I ask a few questions? But he just doubled down on insanity and, just going for the YouTube views. And he's just like, yes, well, what you don't know is that you don't know the full picture. And then he just went on a little rant about, like, why his channels should get more views. And it didn't say that specifically, but psychologically, that's what he was going with. He was just like, free speech, and this is what I'm trying to do. And it sells. You know what I mean? Like, opinions sell. And I get it. That's why I didn't want to, like, write a huge comment. I just want to be on my way and make my own video. You know what I mean? Get my own views. If I'm going to have my own opinions, I want my own views. So that was the whole deal. Because I just think it was just propaganda at that point. It just missed the point. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, everyone, even the passengers, they're just like, rafting's dangerous. Yeah, live with it. And then it brings up the actual points. It's like, what's the age limit that you should set for taking people down the river? Because plenty of families are like, I take my family all the time. 3, 4, 5, we do class 3. You know what I mean? Well, that's fine. Like, you thought of it more than everyone else. But when it comes to this is a grandpa. Took his grandchild, two grandchildren to the river and thought it was just kind of like an easy thing, Disneyland. But it was. Even if they fell out, a kid would probably be alive if his life jacket was still on. I mean, that's the craziness. I mean, that's why it's just like, no. There's no reason to point fingers at this one. If it was a teaching moment, it wasn't. You can't just ignore the fact that a life jacket fell off. You know what I mean? And the only thing that makes sense is pointing the finger at the PFD manufacturer and be like, well, let's make a life jacket for whitewater rafting that actually stays on you, and that makes sure it's not a hazard and an entanglement. You know what I mean? Make them wear wetsuits where you actually buckle it to the wetsuit, where you don't have extra straps. There's plenty of ways for that life jacket to be permanently, or like just buckled to you without being an entrapment. That's the whole scenario. There's nothing more. I mean, there is more, but you're just using it as propaganda to like. It's insanity. And I did. I made the comment. I was going to make the comments like, I appreciate your videos because this is great. But your videos are just getting me so riled up that I want my own views for my own opinions. You know what I mean? I'm going to stitch my own, add to the fabric of the raft industry if it's just all put together with opinions. Okay. So that's just what makes this video so exciting, because we're talking about, a couple things. We're talking about a safety talk outline and how it's a verbal waiver. And then, just using the ferocity of just like listening to someone's opinion. That's the one thing I don't like propaganda, because it's like his videos are voiced also, and he knows this. He's got a cool little recipe. He'll probably go far with it, and the negative views help. You know what I mean? Like, you have to trade off things in life. That's why Gear Garage is probably going to make quality content, and they'll probably stick right at 10K. You know what I mean? If they go on a just a real oddball, just get real double down on their opinions, yeah, maybe all the negative stuff will propel them to the top. You know what I mean? You can sell yourself out. That's fine too. And I'm just joking. I'm just showing life. It's like, yeah, opinions get everyone riled up, and yeah, if you want views, you got to get people riled up. Okay. But yeah, I mean, I've taken so much from Gear Garage, but yeah, it's just a plethora of opinions. You know what I mean? It's like, because sometimes I think they're talking right at me. They'll say things like, solo boating is the stupidest thing you can do. It's just like, yep, They're probably not going to have me on my show because that's like all I do. You know what I mean? They probably, I have mental illness. I figure like people hate, like the stigma is just like hater. I have to deal with that, and that's why I want thicker skin, and I have no idea. But at the end of the day, now I'll go on that show because personality is king. You know what I mean? If you're not putting yourself, if you're not 2 years in prison, it's just like, yeah, let's just, that's kind of my litmus test of like, yeah, I don't care about your opinion. It's just like, you're a person. You know what I mean? I don't care about your opinion. You're a person. So, yeah, and it's great. I've learned more from that gear garage, but I will jokingly say it's not even a passive-aggressive thing. It's just really opinionated. Like everyone in the nation thinks that's the most opinionated raft show, but I think we need more. We need 10 opinionated raft shows because it just shows that the raft industry is put together with opinions. Honestly, it's crazy. Okay. So here we go. So we got guide will point positive, and then we got the throwback demo. And, just going right to it. Because the throwback is the craziest thing. The first sentence out of your mouth when you talk about how a throwback works is be like, yes, this is attached to the boat, but guess what? We can't throw it from the boat. And we do this backwards. Everyone talks about the throw bag when you're like when you're swimming and you're farther away from the boat. It's like, don't use that sentence at all. Like eliminate that sentence for your vocabulary. Eliminate the need to talk about the throw bag right after you say if you're farther away from the boat. Because in my mind, I'm waiting for a throw bag. Hey, guess what? I'm farther away from the boat. Throw that throw bag. And almost 100 times out of 100, hopefully, as an industry, we're not throwing that throw bag from the boat. But I'm totally fine with the golly, even being class 5, each rapid ends in like a placid, Disney ride of a lake. And you can, most of them, you know what I mean? Just placid as placid can get. You can throw 8 throw bags. Every upper golly raft should have 8 throw bags on it because, yeah, it's a lot of work to get all your people back. And you should throw like a spider web of throw bags to everyone, and they should pull themselves in, and they should repack their own throw bag for falling out of the boat. But just in general, you don't want to throw a throw bag from a moving raft. But I really do appreciate, like, people just destroy this really it seemed like, I don't know, just from my perspective, the guy seemed real confident. He was I thought just a real class act, you know what I mean? And so any rescue scenario, I'm looking at like what you did, not what you didn't do. That's crazy. We can talk about that for it's on YouTube. We can talk about that for the rest of our lives. But so what this guy did do is he got through third drop and he's set in safety above fourth drop. He's in an eddy. His boat stopped. So is that enough to throw a throw bag? Well, let's break it down. So on that left side, if people swim down that left side, let's say it's 100%. They cross that, they get over there, they're toast. They're 100% dead. Your body ain't flushing to the right. You're just going into a death trap. Okay, so this guide identified that there was only one swimmer. That from the footage, that's all it was. It was just like, hey, there's like one swimmer that didn't get collected, and they are literally going for that death trap. But maybe they weren't. This is where, yeah, I will say it's a good one. Like, you don't need to hate on this one because he did just fine. He threw, I forget, now I got to even look at this. But I think he threw the rope, actually good throw, got it, and he's pulling that swimmer kind of towards him, towards the boat, and now they have kind of a jumble of swimmer. They get the swimmer in, but now they're going through the rapid with a whole rope of loose rope. I don't know. Like, had that swimmer just been on their own, would they have been toast? Yeah, it just brings up a scenario, but that's... I don't know. That's so interesting. But I was just real impressed that this guy did something. Half of new guiding is the fact that your brain's going to turn off. And I'll just say it. I've seen it. I've seen even, like Harder River. Let's say it's the Upper Golly. I'll just pick a river that I've not seen, too much of. I've not worked for any of the companies. And you can check off in the Upper Golly pretty fast. You know what I mean? And... you're just needed. A lot of people want to go down during fall, and hey, you're checked off, you're going to take some boats. But let's say you're struggling as a guide. You know what I mean? And, what am I getting at? Oh, yeah. You can get deer in the headlights when a scenario comes, and no one's immune. Like, we're talking commercial airline pilots. Just watch all the commercial airline pilot deaths in black boxes. At some point, they just lost it. You know what I mean? It's a scenario. Sometimes you do everything you can until that last moment, and you do everything you can correct. But then other points, you see where like a mistake got made, and then it just gets compounded. You can't find the light at the end of the tunnel. Well, you'll find the light at the end of the tunnel. It's just like the wrong light. Okay, but I've seen it in the raft industry, and even me. Like, mine is social. Like, I'll turn off. It's like I'm still going to call commands, but maybe that's my ability to just be like, yep, socially I'm turned off, and now I'm just doing the bare minimum of trying to make sure that this day is safe. But then you get into scenarios where, all right, I'm just going to envision the one. Yep, the boat, you had plenty of opportunity, like the boat's pinballing down into like a dangerous, just to a high-risk class 5, and you're like, oh, shoot, this ain't going well. But you're like, whoa, 1, just count them, like 1, 2. Like, you had 5 or 10 seconds to do something, to use your crew, call commands. But else it's just like, nope, we're just pinball at this point. Like the guide's brain turned off. And like I'm saying, I'm just bringing this up because we all fit that category. There's only so much we can handle before we're just like, nope, did not sign up for this. And everyone's different. And then so it's like that's why, like, even mindset, it's like, what do we do? That's really good. So the verbal waiver, yes, it's a verbal waiver, but it also gives you instructions. We all know that rafting is high risk. And we want to know that it is dangerous, but at the end of the day, we want solutions. We want to be, what can we do to stay safer? So that's what this. So even though you can phrase it as like, yes, this is a verbal waiver, but this is also the solutions. This is the cheat sheet to stay statistically more alive than you've ever felt, in your life. Okay, and because what was the one that I was talking about? Is we got way into throwbags, but oh shoot. But anyway, let me talk about that. You're using the waiver. You're using the safety talk as a verbal waiver, but you're using it as a solutions sheet, a cheat sheet, because everyone wants to know if they're in this situation, they have control. They can do this. Yes, and I brought it up with the guide. Like not doing anything and then pinballing into something nasty. And that day, everyone fell out. No one died. But, I won't say the scenario to get it narrowed down. But I will say that we just had a broken bone. Broken leg bone. Okay, perfect. It wasn't even, but it was bad enough that we had to haul the person out 2 miles, or like a mile. And the trip had to stop. And we had to haul him out a mile. Oh, perfect. This is really jogging my memory. And we had to get him an ambulance. Now, I was new in guiding. I was just a gopher. I was just a shuttle. I ain't running that stretch yet. I was just interning from the raft company. I even said, I'm struggling with my mental health. And it's like, you really shouldn't use me. And I had to say that. I was the bigger person to say, like, you know what? I really appreciate it, but you shouldn't use me because my mind and the medicine I'm on, I'm not able to meet all the requirements socially, responsibly. I had the skill to get people down, but I did a good job there. So I was just kind of a witness. And that's where I do real good. That's where I could do a lot of videos just on coaching. And under the caveat that most of these coaching videos, it's all opinions. You know what I mean? And it's like, I'm really curious about yours because I will be shaped. I'll be shaped by your negative comments, thicken my skin, but I'll also be shaped in the right directions of like, what are scenarios people want answers to? So that solutions, even the cheat sheet, as a company, you're going to have a death on a river. You know what I mean? And just like me, when every boat flips, and being in the game for so long, just thinking, shoot, this is the flip of a coin. Something funk is going to happen, and someone's not going to pop up. You know what I mean? And then you get into CPR mode. The game's not over right there. The day's not over. Your career of boating's not over. This is risks that would take. You know what I mean? This is why it's fun. So as a company, it's just real good to be like, hey, you guides, someone died. Now this is what we do. We got to get from point A to the end of the day. You know what I mean? That's kind of a fun way to say it, you know, for something so serious to happen. But it's really important. And it's because you don't want to induce more trauma into all of us where like no one wants to guide and the season's just a big old, you know, craziness. But yes, things happen. Every time someone falls out of the boat, and this is not a safety talk deal, this is just more of a company. You know what I mean? Statistics, it's going to happen. So what's going to be the best procedures to make sure this day gets underway? And just double down on the like half of it is body recovery, and half of it's like CPR till a helicopter arrives. CPR till outside services come. You know what I mean? Like at that point, you have a dead body, a drowned body, and you're doing as much as you can CPR until you ain't transporting. But there's a lot of interesting scenarios where like, well, a helicopter ain't landing right where you are. So if you do have, this brings up like the psychological aspects of rescue where you're just like, holy Toledo. Like you just drug up, you know, a drowned person and they're on just like a real crap side of the river. But if you do CPR, you might even not even be able to do effective CPR there. If you can't, definitely use that opportunity to take 1 minute and get them down to a place where you can do CPR. And even if that's a place where a helicopter, even better. But yeah, it's such that's an interesting one that you might want to. I mean, just even that. Who would have thought? You're just like, whoa, we got some decision making to make. You know, even body recovery. You know, CPR. Can we do it effective in the location we are? And shoot, yeah, we are. We're trying to revive on site. Like, that's our best opportunity. You know what I mean? You're going to lose it if you spend any more than 30 seconds, transporting to a better location. If you can do effective CPR where you are, then just do it. Revive the body. And if you can't, at the end of the day, like all first aid, it's just doubling down to what you know. You're doing the best you can. The body's already dead. No matter what. You know what I mean? Like, it, So you have these scenarios. But these scenarios happen all the time where you're just like, yeah, if we just go across the river or just down there, a helicopter can actually land there. And we can get a helicopter in 30 minutes and I don't know. I've gotten to work with a company that they're also a rescue company too. So they've gotten to hear all these different scenarios and it's crazy. It's just like, whoa, that scenario happened? You're like, dang. Like who would have thought, you know, yeah, it's like crazy. Make you believe in miracles. So anyway, it just really sets it up of like, yeah, what's our duty? How do we get through the day? What do we do? And then so it breaks down that what do we do? Like this scenario happens, this is what we do. As a minimum, as a guide, it's like here's a rapid. If you don't say a darn word the entire trip, you are required by law, by Canadian law, to actually say that the rapid is. You don't have to give it a name, but you got to be like, hey, rapid up ahead. Hazards are, this is what you do if you fall out. Okay, I'm going to shut up until the next rapid. Okay. So it's just good to have those minimums. And those minimums are solutions. I like it. It's like things to do. Yeah, so throw bag demo, that was the only thing. It's like the only time a throw bag is going to be used is on shore. And I explained that. It's like, hey, the throw bag's on the boat, but the only time we're going to use it is if that boat's near shore, and then I, as a guide, get out on shore, and then you're in the middle of the river, and then I throw it to you. And then you catch it, grab on, and then you get pendulum. So they get the whole deal. But it's just like, that's a lot. That's a lot going on, right? So, one, I have to be on shore. So this is a tool on our boat, but don't just be like, hey, throw me the rope. Like we want to paddle after you. That's our best. So even giving them some information. Like our best mode to get you is to paddle after you. So if we say, you're going to be like, hey, swim back to a boat. Like swim to that boat because it's closer. They're going to paddle towards you. Keep swimming until you get out of the water. And this is a good one to double down as a company. Anytime you have people in the water, I swear to God, like people will paddle, like stop paddling and not paddle like nothing's happening. Like even, yeah, like the rapid's over, but you'll just be like, oh, everyone looks fine, and we just drift together, and then we'll get them out in about 5 minutes. It's like, no. It's like, if you have anyone in the water, treat it like it's hot lava. Do whatever game you want to play, but get your crew paddling. You don't have to dig deep like it's the hardest rapid, but you have to constantly be paddling. It's like, hey, see that person? All right, we constantly paddle. Even if it's at a moderate pace, you know what I mean? Because they're a little ways away. But I see that all the time. It's just like, holy Toledo. You got a boat flipped, half of them are still in the water, and no one's paddling after them. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, that boat can get all three. Well, you need to do your due diligence and get there. Because the time you get there, that's where funky things can happen. There's been like a lot of deaths on the upper gully, and none of them, like hardly any of them, were like people swimming into an undercut. It has happened. But it's like people having respiratory issues after they got pulled out of the water and then dying of respiratory like failure. Like they might have aspirated a little water and it messed up their lungs and it caused, some sort of, and it was, some of these were breathing and lung related. It wasn't even just like heart condition. So, some of like those were young people, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's late 30s or 40s. Just wild. But yeah, so I doubled down on like the throw bag. Yeah, double down on like no. We use our boats to get you. So also you need to do your due diligence, and that's the easiest thing. It might be too complicated for you to hold onto the rope, throw it over your shoulder, have water come over your head, plane your body, get in that defensive swim position, keep your feet up, a lot of tension on the rope, keep holding on. If we say let go, you got to let go because else. We determined that like, no, you got to let go here because you're going to get pulled into something. It's a lot going on. You know what I mean? It's kind of a verbatim thing. Like that's the only one to be like, this is the scenario, we use it. Like that any throw bag talking about in a safety talk, yeah, give a little demo. But then also, huge caveat is like, this thing's probably ain't going to come out. Well, it's probably never going to come out in a moving boat. So that's the deal there with the throw bag. So now the next thing says self-rescue awareness. Yeah, this whole thing is self-rescue. It's the solutions. It's what you do when you fall out of the boat. That's why I did the scenario. That's why I was like, who's gung-ho? Because when you fall out of the boat, turn towards the boat, friggin' swim to the boat, grab on. Like there ain't a rapid that you can fall out, that you can't turn and take 2 strokes and just grab the boat. But if you're not able to do that, yeah, then you got to get into that defensive swim position. But in the defensive swim position, it's kind of like, hey, yeah, if you're like, dude, I did not pay to do like to like, what's that show where all the ninjas are like, in a playground? I don't know, yeah, where they're just like, yeah, this is what we should do with playgrounds, like, do crazy things. Anyway, so that show, American Ninja Warrior, it's just like, if you don't think you're an American Ninja Warrior, you fall out of the boat, we just want you to, like, not breathe water. Like, literally, that's a hard thing. You got to hold your breath. Your head pops up. Yeah, you got to catch a breath. Guess what? Your head's going to go right under the next rapid. And that's going to happen, like, repeatedly. So this is really, like, I've done this. I was just like, okay, and I'll do this. This is a scenario. So it's like, okay, here we go. We're going to do a little practice. All right, everyone hold their breath for 3 seconds, and then we're going to take a breath. Then we're going to hold it for 3, and then we're going to take a breath. You have to exhale and inhale, and then we're going to hold for 3 seconds. And guess what? We're going to do it until, you don't want to do it anymore, and you don't even have to participate in this. But it's kind of neat because you're just like, dang, that's kind of what, I did not expect that's what swimming's like. And this is a perfect scenario. So here we go. Hold your breath. Exhale, take a breath. Hold your breath. Exhale, take a 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 breath. and we're done. You know what I mean? But like even that's a pain in the butt. Just the fact that your head's going through all those waves, and it took me almost 2 seconds, 2 full seconds to exhale and take a breath, and then I held my breath for 3 seconds. How long does it take to exhale and take my breath? Here we go. Yeah, about 2 seconds. So this is good education, is that you really have to time your breath. 2 seconds is enough for your head to just slam into the next wave. Have a nice little wave lap up in your mouth, and now you're coughing on water. And now you have that 2 seconds to do like cough out that water, catch your breath. So that is hands down, when we're talking about breathing in waves and troughs, is to bring that experience to them. And that's my opinion why I did not like, that was the only thing I did not like about the IRF is like, you know, they were like, oh, you can't have too many jokes. Well, you got a lot of jokes in them. It's not about the joke. Like even just mentioning jokes and the fact that you use them in a safety talk, that's absurd. That's like having jokes in a liability waiver. You know what I mean? You want earnest, honest, and yes, you are going to be charismatic. And you might be a little bit funny. But you don't have, it's not a recipe. You know what I mean? This is not like insert joke here. That is literally the last thing, I don't know. But just from that perspective, so what I did not like about that is the person was just like, when you fall out, just smile. You know what I mean? Well, you don't have time to smile. You got to breathe, and you got to time your breathing, and it's going to suck. You know what I mean? Just being honest. People want to know the honest truth. I love this video, and if I can find these videos, I'll kind of insert the description. It's the Colorado. Colorado, is it more dangerous to float in Colorado rafting? A lot of deaths. Well, guess what? Half the rafting happens in Colorado. It's like almost got 99% of everyone going down the river, they do it in Colorado. So it's just a lot of people like it. They got the biggest industry. But anyway, so they got the most GoPro footage of most any other state. And and they have like high gradient rivers. They have rivers where if you fall out, yes, as a company, you really have to manage making sure people don't get swept below the last boat. You know, runaway people. But that's why they signed a waiver. That's why part of this safety talk is like, and I would just include, and I think we're almost there. Because it's self-rescue. We can't always get to you. Okay, perfect. We got it. So what happens? Yeah, if I'm the lead boat. So, like, if I'm ever the lead boat, and I might be, I got a lot of experience and blah, blah, blah. But I'm going to tell my crew, it's just like, hey, I don't care if they're old or young, but I'm going to be like, hey, so we have a scenario here. We are the first boat. What happens if we fall out? Like, let's say our whole boat flips. Like, is the boat behind us going to, like, you know, develop superhuman arms and then just, like, motorboat up to us in the next, you know what I mean? So it's like, so two things. One, we want to use that boat behind us and make sure they're right on us, you know, for safety. That's our safety. So if we fall out, be thinking about that. You might want to swim back to that boat. And this is perfect because I think of things that are just like, so it's physics. So I would tell my people, well, the side of the river is a little bit slower. And then depending on what state I am, there are states where you don't want to go anywhere near the side because you'll do the strainers. And I guess that's the next thing. But anyway, let's say a river don't have strainers. This stretch don't. And if you swim to the sides, you're going to slow down. And guess what? That boat behind us, they're going to catch up to you. But if you're just in the middle of the current, that boat behind us will not catch you. So then you're on your own, you know, to do whatever you need to do. And you honestly can't. You can't be floating through this rapid and then a mile downstream go through the next rapid. That's just a no-go. So just be thinking, I got to do something. The things that you do, you know, and then you can be like, yeah, swim. Freaking swim on your stomach. Who here can do that? And then be honest. Be like, who here isn't going to be like, yeah, I'm not Michael Phelps. Well, if you're not, even in that defensive swim position, you can back paddle with your arms, right? Treat it like we've all been to, all these people that you're just like, I don't know about them. Yeah, they probably got more water experience from that aquatic aerobics class they do every week. But, just be like, yeah, in your water aerobics class, you kind of move your arms. And you can do that. You can take little back paddle strokes. And I like the defensive swims. It's kind of like a turtle on your back. Your feet and hands are in the air, and you can see them. That's the visual of keeping your feet up. Turtle on your back. And use your arms to get where you want to go. But this is real good because if I'm the lead boat, that scenario is going to happen. And I've been on one boat trips, class 4, like lock style one boat trip. It's like state of Idaho, probably should have a commercial law that says no. You have to have at least, even that. If I had laws, you work towards, you have to have one safety boat on all legit class 4 runs. And that's a legit class 4 run. You should always have a safety boat. You can't just have because the scenario is like the first boat is going to be the strongest guide maybe, but maybe they need to take the weakest crew. So now you're already sacrificing your front boat to be the strongest guide with the strongest crew. Because if I'm running a show, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be like, I'm the first boat. I'm the safety boat guide, strongest crew. I'm going to pick it every time. And then just by statistics, a weak crew can go with, just by everyone's weak on this trip. So, and you're going to get newer guides with the weaker crew, and then they're going to have the upset. But my crew is going to be able to pick them up. And if my crew tips over and we flip, well, I already educated them. That guess what? We can't always get to you, and you signed up to go rafting, and you're all gung-ho. And you're good for it. You're good for it. And that's the scenario I want. The whole premise was be like, guess what? Rafting is more dangerous than skydiving. If you want an easy, guaranteed flip of a coin that I'm going to live today, go skydiving. If you want to go rafting, the stakes are a little bit higher. Because it's and I love the analogy. It's like a commercial airline. Because I got into a 1,500 hours for a commercial airline pilot. Well, guess what? They don't have to entertain you. They don't have to say a darn word to you the entire trip. And they don't have to halfway go barrel roll, do a crazy maneuver, that's super cool. Fly over the Grand Canyon real low and then bank their wing the entire time so you just have a perfect bird's eye view of the Grand Canyon. You know what I mean? At most, they'll fly over the Grand Canyon, and even that, maybe they're taking a higher risk, taking a different flight plan. You never know. But at the end of the day, a pilot is going to keep you more alive because they don't have to deal with, keeping you entertained at the same time. Keeping your expectations right at this limit of safety and dangerousness that we're trying to cultivate as an industry. What's safe and what's dangerous. It's I love this is probably just a legend story, but it's probably true. It's on the Upper Gully. You got, hey, every time I flip my boat off this rock and we all fall in, and it's kind of an educational experience because people like that. They like to fall out in a controlled way, and they like to see the whole experience. It's educational from that. They'll come back rafting if they fell out on purpose, then fell out in a real scary situation. Well, legend has it. I don't know if this is legend or just a true story. But guy did this for an entire career. And then once he did it, one person went under the rock and got stuck. Who knew? An undercut. An upper. And I'm kind of making a joke there, but not really. You know what I mean? It was kind of who knew? But everything's undercut on the Upper Gully. So maybe you would want to flip on a wave. That's why you flip on Fuzzy Bunny. That, it's really cool. That's part of the raft industry. I would never want to lose that. I would never want to lose the ability to be I can't flip the boat. If I flip the boat, in my mind, I have to think everyone's going to die. You know what I mean? And that's just insanity. And I was nervous. I flipped on the lock saw, and it was up against a seam, and we were in the process of rescuing another boat. I got out of position, and now we're first boat. Because I was just I want to make sure I'm first boat so they don't. Anyway, and then I put my whole crew into a situation where we were first boat. We flipped over. Luckily, we were close to shore. I say swim to shore. Some people got maybe I did deer in the headlights, but no, I was focused. I think I said swim to shore, but that aspect, I don't think I was super assertive about and I gave no warning. I'm sure I gave the warning that, hey, we're first boat today, so if we do fall out, swim to shore. I didn't do it through every rapid, though, and we already were safety for the rapid above us. It was that shoestring. The boat flips, and then we paddle out because I didn't want them to get below us. They clean up real easy, and then once they cleaned up, they had to clean up after us. And it was Jones waves. And at high water, there's just a huge lateral. And it brings up this was cool because it brought up the point of like, who knew like Jones waves actually is probably like a decent class 4. Because you're more likely to flip on Jones waves or fall out of the boat than any other like wave rapid in the Lochsa at high water. And after Jones, you just have a recipe for newbie disaster. Because I knew it. I was like, holy Toledo. I knew I flipped my boat, and instantly I'm like, we have a long corridor till shoestring. But if anyone swims over to shoestring, your odds of just like having someone flush drown just skyrocket. Because if they go through shoestring, they're going to lose all ability to self-rescue. Like that. That's their moment of self-rescue. If they go through shoestring, well, they're floating through Lochsa, even though it's like almost a half a mile like downstream. But it's just like, day's over right there. So my whole deal was to, hey, swim to shore, and they did. And then I had a boat help me. They pulled in some swimmers and then got the other two to most people swam to shore. But one person stuck with the boat. And so my whole goal was to get on it. And it's real difficult. It's real difficult to get on an upside down boat. There was no safety straps on this. So it was just like a one-time deal. And I did a good job. I got on top of it. And I had to get to the ends of it. This was an air boat. You can't get over the side. You can't get your finger. There's no finger holes. So I did good. Got to the end. It took a couple times. Couldn't get it my first try. But the second time I got on top. Perfect. Now I'm on top. Now this is the time you really got to take your time. You're like, I got a window. I got a lot of flat water. But even me and this person hanging onto the boat, we cannot go through shoestring. And can't go through the next rapid. So I flipped it back over. But then I'm tired. You know what I mean? I've been guiding the whole day. This is like the last trip. This is like the Sunday trip. Anyway. And it was real difficult to get myself pulled in. And I maybe had to do it twice, but I did. I was like, okay, I got in. I lost my paddle, that's for sure. Like it was big enough where I had to like I tried to hang on to the boat, and I even couldn't do that. It was powerful enough that I got underneath the boat, and I took about 10 seconds underneath the boat. I could not get out from underneath the boat. I wasn't stuck, but I was just physically under there. And because I was under there for so long, I was just like, uh-oh. If anyone else was under this boat for this long, they might not, they might aspirate water, might drown. So that was interesting. But anyway, so I got out from under and did all that rescue, and we pulled it in. We even were able to paddle to shore above shoestring, and we did a good job. Above Horsetail Falls. So anyway, so the scenario there is to have something to do. You know what I mean? And I guess I think I can always work on my verbal skills. And you're already setting yourself up. You're like, hey, if we flip here, this is what you do. Like, we're the first boat. You got to swim to shore. So then even if I'm in the water and I get separated and can't communicate, at least they knew it prior to that. But then in the water, you do have a moment to be like, hey, swim to shore. Go do this. That's always a good thing. Always tell people to do stuff. All right, I might have to come back to that story because, it's kind of interesting. We were talking about one boat floats, Lochsa. Yeah, if we had laws, class 4, have some safety because you're on your own. And flush drownings are real. It's in the raft industry, if we can do more to prevent flush drownings. And that's what I love Gear Garage, because I love them because I'm so excited to listen to all their opinions. If they were boring, I would not listen to them. So that's why if I was ever got to be on the show, it's like, hey, I got an opinion too. It's like we're well matched. And I really like that. So now I'm doubling up. You know what I mean? You got to make a poop sandwich. You got to say 7 nice things, and then throw in like a comedy on the negative. But no, it's all good. I love it. I think it's perspective. If you don't think Gear Garage is not opinionated, well, then you're just not using your brain. It's like, that's why we love it. It's just solid opinions. And that's why I'm just making the joke that the raft industry is just put together with opinions. Now, that's just an opinion. That's just an opinionated joke. Okay. But yeah, it kind of rounds out, like, we can't always get to you. And we can always do better in the raft industry to reduce flush drownings. And I love Gear Garage. Why did I mention them? Because they work so diligently on spacing. Spacing is like one of the most, like, just coveted of the coveted covenants of rafting. And it's just so nice. And it's like, you know what I mean? Like, just ducks in a row. Like, flat water. Pace, like, spacing is king. How to eddy together. The hardest thing you can do as a new guide is figure out how to eddy your boat. Well, two things. How to be in an eddy as a team, and you all exit at the same time so your spacing stays together. Now, I mentioned this maybe in other videos, how I go about being the trip leader or like the first boat, you know, and I make sure that I'm communicating and to make sure like everyone's there. And I go a little slower as first boat. You know, you might, if you're the second and third boat behind me, yes, I do communicate that to you before the trip. Is like, I need that last boat. All I'm paying attention to is that last boat and making sure they're. So I also have to communicate before the trip with the last boats what I expect. You know what I mean? In the flats, I want us to be together so we have the same spacing. If you can't show me spacing in the flat, how the hell are you going to, like, you know, magically get your shit together and magically have awesome spacing through the rapids? You ain't. And the opposite is true. Like, I want to be tight. So you have to communicate that if you're going to be the trip leader or the boat as a guy. You know what I mean? This is what I expect and this is what I'm doing. Because you'll see me doing out there. Like, I'll be looking at you and I'm going slower and I'm helping you out, giving you olive branch. I'm like physically forcing you to catch up. Now, if you do the opposite and slow down, it's like that. I didn't do a good job of communicating what my intentions were. Like, as a leader, as like that mama duck, it's two-way street. You can't just expect things to happen. You expect things not to happen. That's why we use our communication skills, and we do that all prior to the trip. And you know, throw in the towel if things aren't going that great. You know what I mean? It's okay. Don't get frustrated. It's okay when things aren't going that great. Do your best. You know what I mean? You can't win all battles on every river trip. You can always just work in the right direction. But that's how I run lead boat, and it's real difficult. Newer guides, it's real difficult for them to get in the mind that to be close, to how to exit and eddy as a team, and then keep that boat spacing. But the worst is when you have, like, and on the Alberta Gorge, it's just a puddle of water, it's like an infinity pool, and then like the rapid is the waterfall. Like, you got no movement, like the water's going backwards. And so you could have the tightest boat spacing, but the second that first boat hits that tongue and starts driving into that first wave, like, everyone's just a mile behind. There's no safety. So, yeah. And it's neat. I like those because it's just like, it's fun to have too close a boat spacing. Like in guide training, it would be interesting to be like, well, how can, like, let's practice. If you want to make this kind of class 3, class 4, let's just have the tightest boat spacing possible. You know, almost to the detriment. Like, we might get in some trouble. We can take care of each other. We're doing this as a learning experience. But yeah, get that just real tight half space. You know, and see what boats and what teams, like, are going faster. Because you're going to have to use that. Yeah, if I'm going faster, yeah, I got to time it so I'm not running into you in the rapid. But yeah, there's a lot of teamwork involved. All right, so now we're at the high side command for a waiver. This one brings up a good point. Because I like, in the safety talk, it would just be a one sentence. Your guide will have a command called high side. They'll say high side. Actually, this is actually well written because it says high side command. Your guide might not say high side. They might say get left or get right. But guess what? That's the high side command. So you can be like, your guide, there's a high side command. I don't know how you say that, but yeah, you can get some verbatim to be like, yeah, you're just bringing up the topic, and why do we do it? Well, it's the best tool to keep the boat from flipping. There's situations out here where, like, you know, paddling hard and working as a team, that keeps us in the boat. But at some point, there's a point where we actually just, like, have to ditch the paddling. We don't just throw our hands up in the air and hope for the worst. No, we call high side, and this actually is an amazing tool. You get everyone to the high side of the boat, and it keeps us upright for whatever reason. You don't even need to know the reason, but it's fun because you actually have to get out of your seat and go do something. This is the time to stretch your legs because the river's going to stretch them for you, because if you don't high side, we're all flipped. We're all in the water. Okay. So, but my point is, for a safety talk, I just would not demonstrate this at all. It's just, there's no reason to. And the reason there's no if you need to say it as a verbal liability, do it. Use one word, one sentence. Be like, your guide will give you a high side command, and this is what it does. And it keeps the boat from flipping, and this is what you do. You can say that in 1 or 2 sentences, real fast. But the deal is, as a company, I would want the company, every company. I mean, but I'm just focused on one that I'm going to go help out, is to have it dialed in. So I think this would be a great way to start a trip. And we have this perfect river where, yes, it's easy, and we have a warm-up rapid. And then after this warm-up rapid, we don't have like the greatest eddy. It's almost like a lake. But yeah, you can paddle over to it. And yeah, it'll take a little while to paddle out. But I mean, we have this opportunity to, even if you don't eddy out, we have enough placid water where like you can just have a paddles up command. Like the second you get through that swimmer's, or like that warm-up wave, and then just like once we're all in the flat and we got good boat spacing, we can communicate with the paddles up in the air. And what that would tell the trip leads, or the lead boat, or the trip leader, is that everyone, or just tell the group as a whole, is that we have done all the on-water safety checks. So I think the safety talk is a verbal waiver, but then on the water, you have a physical waiver. You have to demonstrate that you taught them how to paddle. You have to demonstrate that they can paddle and they are doing it, and you have at least identified, and you have to use that, like you verbally, if you're not seeing effective paddling, like that you have verbalized that, and that you've addressed it from the... It's just good to know that as the company, you're telling your new guides that this is the opportunity that you are totally allowed, and we want you to get your paddling. This is the time that you do what you do. You know what I mean? But you teach them your own style, and make sure the check boxes are that you are witnessing effective paddling. Because if you give it in the safety talk, great. I don't think you need to. Like, you do one word. You show them a vertical stroke. You show that you use your entire body. You show that you lean forward. You're like, done and done. Check off the box. But when it comes to on water, easier said than done. Because you can notice that you're not leaning forward. So those aspects are... As a company, I would say, like, did you teach them to lean forward and pull their bodies back as a team? And so some guides do this without paddle strokes, but I just think it's like that. You need to see that rocking motion. So I would say that's the checkoff. Your crew is leaning forward as a group and pulling the paddles back as a group. Perfect. Okay, even if paddle's not 100% vertical, you can't expect perfection. But you can't just have them use their arms. The second you have paddlers that are just like using their arms, and it's not that they're paddling inefficiently, it's that they're saying verbally, I quit. Because the second they get into a big wave, they will. Those are the passengers that will stop paddling altogether, and they mess up the rhythm. And it's just like, I don't even care if you're not taking strokes and you purposely miss one on purpose, but you can't miss the timing. You have to rock forward and backwards as a group. And I've never said it that way, but you're just like, whoa, my minimum requirement as a passenger is to, when you hear all forward, is to rock forward and backward. and then that'll help, like, any effort you put in that you were going to juice out to this team, like, it'll just be so much better and easier on you and your arms, and it'll make just life so much better. Efficient paddling, that's efficient paddling over strong paddling. And then this is what you do. It's just like, you tell people, it's just like, yes, like, you are the engine, and that's okay. Like, because we have these other scenarios where this is where you can introduce high siding. Like, this is verbally a good way to do it, because you're just like, I'm going to use you guys to the best of my ability. I don't want to. I'm also going to know that you can't just paddle forever and you only have energy. Only so much energy in the tank. You know what I mean? But that's fine. Like, I have an idea of how to get us through rapids with not using a lot of power. But that doesn't mean I don't want you just to be purposefully lazy. And then that's a scenario where, me as a guide, I'd be like, we have 8 rapids, and I might have you paddle through the flats and do what you need to do. But when it comes to getting dialed in, letting people know that these 8 rapids, 30 seconds long, this is when things are going to happen. This is when you're going to fall out of the boat. And this is where I use your paddling to get the boat, through successfully. And, just to kind of phrase it that way might be a good way to go. It's just because it's such a psychological battle of, like, what's motivating and unmotivating. And even on the lock side, when I flipped that boat at Jones, I was just like, well, we're all on shore. You got options. Like, I'm giving you the option. Oh, and I want to get back to this, because I was giving the people the option. This happens all the time. It's like, we're all tired. We've done a lot of trips. Like, if you want to go back in the boat, we can, but we can find another way to get this boat down the river. You know what I mean? If that shook you up, where you're just like, no, because I even made them. I had goo packets, like those, not like the Powerade ones maybe, but real tasty, and that's what I had on my PFD, and I made them. I was like, you have to eat this. As long as you don't have an allergy to sugar, which nobody does. I was like, you have to do this, because you just expended a lot of energy, and I need your energy levels to be higher, because we have Horsetail Falls, and that's a big rapid, but we have Locksaw. Locksaw is a flip of the coin. We might flip again. And yes, that is going to suck again. It's going to be very exhausting again. But I'm going to do everything I can. Like, I'm actually pretty talented enough where I can get through Locksaw. Like, there's this real simple line down, like, you actually have to go left of center, and you have to have momentum going that direction. So if you're, like, kind of starting center and then you're driving to the left, it's just like, it's a seam. It doesn't seem like there's a seam over there. This is even 15,000, and it's just like almost a sure shot that we're going to get through. So I assured them, but there was a like, even that, I don't think I did a good job on that trip, because I'm like, I just want to work on getting us down. Oh, what I noticed right away is that just one of the paddlers maybe didn't like my personality, and that's a tough one. Like, what the hell do you do? But I knew I wasn't going to get, like, a lot of 100% teamwork or, like, excitement or, dialed inness. And what I said is just, like, right at the beginning, I was like, well, I'm just going to guide our boat, and I'm going to try to make sure you guys don't have to paddle as much. But I also just want to focus on the river, so I want you guys to, like, entertain yourself. That's my focus. But even that, you lose people. There's the psychological effect of, like, it's better just to, just to throw yourself. You're guiding a boat. Give it your all. Like, even if it's exhausting mentally, is to because it's a psychological thing. It's making sure everyone is, very excited. But I did a good job that day. We didn't flip after that, and it was just kind of interesting. But that's this little side story. Rafting's got a lot of psychological factors. All right, so then we got raft flips and recovery. So this is where raft flips, honestly, from a waiver perspective, it fits right in with self-rescue awareness. We can't always get to you. I would actually put all these categories together, and I skip strainers. We'll get back to that. But when it comes to raft flipping, you as a client, like, okay, I guess what you need to know from a liability and waiver standpoint is, yeah, the boat's upside down. The goal is your guide is hopefully still attached to it. Now, there's a chance that your guide's not going to be attached to the boat. Now, should you grab onto the upside down boat? Sure. Like, that's kind of the first thing that we do. We swim to it, we grab onto it. But then what? Well, then hopefully your guide is also grabbing onto the boat, and then they're going to climb on top and flip it over. So that information needs to be needed. But what it sets up is like, hey, the boat flipped. That's crazy. Maybe your guide's nowhere to be found. Your guide also got separated. Like, you can't have a waiver and say your guide's 100% always going to be attached to the boat. They do a really good job of when the boat does flip. And I would train new guides to be like, yeah, if you're calling high side, even just the fact that you're calling high side, like do what you need to do to grab that perimeter line, expect the boat to flip, and make sure you can stay with it. I did that in the Grand Canyon. I soloed the Grand Canyon, and that was I didn't care about flipping. What I cared about is not getting separated from my boat. That would have killed me way more than... I flipped 3 times, stayed with my boat 3 times, never got separated. I even went into... would have flipped on Crystal had the hole been nastier, and potentially I would have got separated had it not been high water and the hole wasn't retentive and just super. It was almost like a breaking wave, but I munched the line on it. Yeah, I did not do a good job there, but I also scouted it and knew that I could run the wave anyway. So when I realized I made my mistake, I was like, well, here I go. I am going to high side my way through Crystal's wave hole. And it was just a wave hole. It wasn't the power. Like at low water, that thing will kill you. I mean, it'll take any... You can't hold on to your raft while your boat's... Unless you get kicked out real fast. The force is too much. You're going to get separated. So there is that scenario. But I wasn't in that scenario. I just held on. So at a certain point, you'd want to teach guides that, to be like, yeah, okay, at the end of the day, you're calling high side. Don't expect your boat to stay upright. No, you're in flip mode. So grab onto the perimeter line, expect the flip, And this is where I would teach. I don't care. I would teach, don't get too invested in your guide paddle. This is just my side note. I don't like in the raft industry that a guide, like, oh, you must hold on to your paddle. It's like, well, you just dumped your entire crew and they're floating everywhere. And you're worried about holding on to your paddle because you don't want to drink a beer out of a booty, which I think is the most absurd. Like, that's harassment. Like, if you think you're being part of a team and you're okay with it, fine, go for it. But I mean, it's harassment if you don't want to be part of that little ritual and you get harassed for it. So anyway, I was in that boat. But anyway, the fact that, that's the last thing. I'd be like, if you're guiding, like, don't buy buy a $200. I don't know. Do what you need to do. Guide paddles are expensive. But what happens is it's not kayaking. So this is a video within a video because kayakers, you can hold on to your paddle. Because why? You got 2 hands on it the entire time. You're not, you hardly, unless you're like pushing off like a cliff wall, like that's the only time you take your hand off the paddle. And then even then, that drives kayakers nuts when they have to push off a cliff wall with their hand and then they tip over. Like they don't even know if they can get their hand back in the right location and roll their boat back up. But I guess at the end of the day, a kayaker is still holding on to their paddle. But rafting, you have to jump to the high side, grab on with your paddle in one hand and the rope. So you're using paddles in one hand. You can grab on the rope with the other hand, but you kind of need both hands to grab onto the rope, else you're going to get separated. So this idea that you need to hold onto your paddle is absurd. Just bring an extra one. You can do a more effective rescue if you just, the second your boat flips, toss your paddle, let it float away. You'll pick it up downstream, and if you don't, who cares? You can do a more effective rescue without your paddle. So at the end of the day, even every raft guide maybe has to, depending on the situation, you're just like, whoa, I'm in between rapids and I'm focusing on getting my paddle up on, make sure it doesn't fall over and into the water again. I mean, like, that could be the first thing you ditch and just go for it. Get in your mode of rescue mode, get the boat flipped back over. Yeah, that was an interesting one. But yeah, that comes with raft flips and recovery. So the idea of the kind of the waiver perspective, what do we need to tell clients about raft flips? Well, they don't need to know. What they need to know is that your guide, that's the time where your guide can easily get separated from the raft. And so again, it's just a double down on we can't always get to you. You're looking for the other boats. If you're the first boat and you flip, you better swim to shore. And even if you don't swim to shore, if you swim to the side, that's where that's where you can slow down and we can, get to you that way. And also we'll get to strainers because, that's a big asterisk. Some rivers you don't want to swim to the sides. So we got to talk about that and undercuts. All right, but raft flips, at the end of the day, the customers don't need to know. They need to know that, hopefully your guide is hanging on and they're going to flip it back over. And then that once they climb in, they can just pull you back in. But that takes a while. That's the take-home point, is that it takes a little bit of time. It might not happen. Your guide might be separated from the boat. So a boat flips, the most important thing from the customer's perspective is like double downing. We can't always get to you. Hey, you might have to swim to another boat. But is it okay to swim back to the upside down boat? Yes. That's almost any scenario you fall out, whether the boat's upside down or not. That's the other thing to double down on, is be aggressive, swim to that boat, hang on. It's much easier to hang on to this big old raft going through the waves than just doing it yourself. And then you can bring up the topic of, if you're hanging on to the boat, well, maybe you have to like move your, that's so secondary. Be like, you're hanging onto a raft and it looks like it's going into a rock. You might have to move away from the raft. You might not have to let go, but if you move yourself to the upstream side, that's always the best. So if you're looking for something to do, move yourself to the upstream side. I would also double down, if you're hanging onto the raft, it's real easy just to dangle your legs. And so I would talk, and we got to talk about foot trap. There's a lot going on in the safety talk. Safety talks are crazy for getting all these topics out. Anyway, but hanging onto a raft, why I would say make sure your feet are still up out of the water is because if your legs hit a boulder when they're dangling, it hurts so bad. Like if you hit your knee with a rock, you're going 5 miles an hour. So I like to do this visual. Is let's say at nighttime you're walking. I don't know, you didn't turn on all the lights and you're walking to the bathroom and you're walking real fast. Like 5 miles an hour is real fast. And you just walk into a wall at 5 miles an hour. Like that's going to hurt. So that's kind of the scenario. Rocks are hard. You can really bust yourself up. That's honestly the number one reason, besides foot entrapment, but that's the number one reason of why you should keep your feet up. That's the reason why I will keep my feet up. Even like I was on the Middle Fork soloing that night. I mean, just R1ing the Middle Fork. It was with the crew. But when I flipped there, only flipped once. I scraped my legs up and didn't hurt them. But I was like, whoa. All I had to do was, I was already hanging on to the upside down boat, had that part down, but I already went into flipping it over and climbing on top, which requires me to, I didn't plane my body out and my legs dipped, but I got raked over some submerged rocks, got beat up a little bit, and I didn't need to do that. I was already hanging on to the upside down boat. I could have taken a few seconds, so on the Grand Canyon I did that. I hung onto my boat on the way over, stayed with it, and then I was in Hermit. I rode basically Hermit top to bottom, just hanging on, and I was like, sweet. There is no reason to try to flip this baby over until I'm at the bottom of Hermit. And then I flipped it over. It was the longest it took, but it only took like 40 seconds. The quickest was Salt. I was like so gung-ho. I was like, shoot, I flipped, and I'm only in the second rapid. doing the Grand Canyon solo. I was like, is this going to be every time? And I got the boat flipped and back in 15 seconds. Or at least the boat flipped back over in 15 seconds. So that scenario is just take your time. You know what I mean? And yeah, if you're hanging onto the boat, don't dangle your feet. You don't want to get raked over the coals. And I think that's raft flips and the recovery. And yeah. And when we do flip it over, no, there's two more things. It's all the things that, I'm going over all the things that don't get covered. What does get covered is, yeah, when your guide flips the boat back over, we're going to say, like, let go. Like, I don't know, whatever. But yeah, it's like, hey, I'm going to flip this on your head, so like push off. And yeah, so that's a better way to say it. Is like a, but yeah, it's good for them to hear that. In the safety talk, if you're hanging on, I will tell you to let go and I would double down and say push off the boat. Because if you're on the other side that I'm pulling, you know what I mean, the boat's not going to fall on you. But if you're on the side that I'm pulling the boat over onto, yeah, you better push off. Because I'm either going to land on you too, like push off and get to the side. And yeah, there you go. Oh, and then, yeah, you can talk about if you're underneath the boat. When the boat flips, it's like, yeah, you might pop up underneath the boat. That sucks. Don't stay under there. Climb out. Use your arms. Get to the side. Take a breath if you need to. But you might not get that breath. I was in the situation on the lock saw. I pop up underneath the boat, pop up into the cavity, and I thought I was going to take a breath. But like whatever flipped your boat, you're in some crazy whitewater. So you just can't guarantee anything that's placid. And I wasn't able to catch a breath. And I was literally under there for 10 more seconds. And I was like, dang, this is way too long. But I got out and then did the whole recovery and did it successfully. But it was right at my limit. And I won't go into it, but I use my flip line also is long, and I'll go into it. So my flip line is long enough, and it's got 2 carabiners on it, to where I can clip it to one side of the perimeter line and throw with the weight of the other carabiner across the boat. So if I'm too tired to climb, if I'm not able to climb on top of an upside down boat, I've been there. On the lock saw, we did training where we flipped the boat, and then I was like, this thing is slippery. It was an air raft. There's nothing to grab onto. It was like a brand new, so tight, the floor had nothing. You get to the ends, I couldn't do it. And then once you try a few times and you're not successful, you ain't like, yeah, you're not Mario that just ate a mushroom and like, you know, you're not doing that. You're not a superhero. So then we're just like, shoot. And I had no other backups in my tool book. And the crazy thing is I had a paddle in my hand, but I forgot the paddle technique. Where you actually stick the paddle in the perimeter line and then pull it down. I'll do a full video on that. But yeah, you can just lay over your chest on that, get your knee on it. I teach customers how to get back in that way and teach guides. Because as a guide, the most fearful thing is like, yeah, it sucks. It's real hard. Like I'm pretty athletic and it's a flip of a coin in these situations where I can climb in, you know, any given boat that the raft company says to guide in. And most raft companies don't allow you to put like extra straps on their boats. They're so worried about a client getting caught up that it's like a no-go. So then at the end of the day, it's a flip of a coin whether I can do an effective rescue and get back in get on top of an upside down boat, flip it over and get on top of that right side up boat. Some boats are really tall, 20-inch, 24-inch tubes. Yeah. So to having another option in your wheelhouse. So with the extra long flip line, get to the center of the boat, throw it over, and then I can work my way around the boat, get to the other side, and then climb in hand over hand. But even that's going to take some time. Even on the lock saw, I didn't really have that in my mindset. I don't know if I could have done that. I was just like, shoot, you got like 1 or 2 opportunities. But I'm just glad that I had that situation on the lock saw where it was iffy. Like if I wasn't able to get back in the boat, that I could go for plan B. You know what I mean? Instead of just having to ditch the whole situation and swim to shore. All right, okay, so that covers raft flips. But now we got to go back to avoid foot entrapment. Yeah, that's my favorite. Just to be at the end of the day having a safety talk, just be a verbal liability. Be like, hey, you might have not thought of this, but like one of the most dangerous things you can do is stand up in the river. And if we just said that if you're on your own, we can't always get to you, and you have to maybe swim to another boat, swim to shore. Hey, there's some shallow spots in this river where you might. I would bring up the psychology. You know what I mean? Because it's just like the psychology says is like the first thing that you want to do is stand up. But we know at the end of the day that's the most dangerous thing you can do. And we need to tell you it's the most dangerous thing you can do because you don't know that. Most people don't know that just standing up in the river, why would that be dangerous? We need to tell you that. And so this is where I would double down on saying this is why we have the defensive swim position. If your minimum requirement today is at least get into this defensive swim position, you know what I mean, and not panic like that. If you did nothing else, that's going to help you out the most. You're going to time your breathing, and they don't need to know that flush drowning is so prevalent. But that sets it up of that like, hey, if all you do is defensive swim, feet up, you avoid foot entrapment. Especially like the bravado guys that know nothing about rivers, like they're the first just to be like, I'm going to stand up and save my whole family. You know what I mean? And then they're dead. I don't know. So there is this idea of standing up in rivers, and I don't know. Like, I was even, you got to crawl to shore. Well, it happens so rarely. You can mention it. I don't know if it's like an actual thing that you need to mention, because in general, we're teaching people to rescue yourself. We can't always get to you. We need you to swim back to boats. But sure, at some point you were like, especially if it's a river that doesn't have a lot of strainers, swimming to shore is a great way to get the hell out of this river. Okay, but now we need to talk about strainers. So I guess the time that you would be most... So you can say that, a strainer is a log or any debris that you can just get caught up in. Yeah, if any floater, if any of us swimming, we like get floated into a log, it's like, yep, that's good as gone. You don't phrase it that way, but I'm just phrasing it to you guys. Listening to this is like, you're screwed over. Yeah, strainers are super dangerous, and it's not just a smooth ass log. It's usually like a root ball, it's like roots are the worst. Root balls are the worst. You'll just get stuck. So shout outs and peace into the rest in peace. The kayaker I'm thinking about got stuck under a root ball and drowned, but so it's just like they don't let go. So any sort of branchy wood or just wood piles, like even the lock saw, the upper, it's like I want to do it at some point. Upper lock saw, it's got it's got log jams. It's got one that is just log jam. Maybe that's not that big of a deal. That's not the thing that's going to kill you on the lock saw. Is that on the upper lock saw, log jam? At the end of the day, that thing ain't going to kill you. It's the actual just doing the upper lock saw. It's continuous and flush drowning. You can only handle about going through 3 or 4 rapids before your body just gives up. And the water's cold and you probably didn't dress for it. So then you just lose all... you lose the game. Okay. So, that lock saw one brings up the high water conditions, which is on this safety talk outline. The strainers, yes. Strainers are near shore most likely. So I mean, if we said that you're on your own and you need to get, rescue yourself, and getting out of the river is the best place to do it, you have to be cautious when swimming. If you're swimming towards shore, that's where maybe strainers are. And if you see a strainer, well, don't keep swimming to shore. Being away from that strainer is the only way to avoid the dangers of strainers. So I like how I said that there, because you're saying strainers are dangerous, and the only way to avoid the danger is by avoiding floating into a strainer. Because then, the last thing we tell people is to swim on top of it. So, everyone knows the last thing you do is when talking about strainers to swim on top of them. And actually, that would be a good way to be like, to ask the audience the question. So raise your hand if you know what a strainer is. How many people have heard that term? How many people have heard that there's logs and debris out here that your body can float into and get stuck under? Like, that's a strainer. How many people, by a show of hands, have heard of that? How many people have heard that an effective way to mitigate? How many people here have heard that you can swim towards a strainer and swim on top of it and swim on top of it? So how many people, by a show of hands, it's like, yeah. So it's like the likelihood that you would be able to swim on top, that would be such a last, I don't even know if you bring that up. It really doubles down on the swimming towards strainers. But it brings up from like a waiver perspective, it's just like, wait a minute. You told people to avoid them, and then the last thing you did is told people to swim at it and climb up it. So obviously there's a grain of salt there that you have to emphasize, even in a few words. Be like, yeah, we just avoid them by swimming away from them. Can we all do that? But yeah, what happens if you can't? Well, you shoulda. You can double down on that, but if you can't, swim on top of it. I mean, yeah, but like, okay, we're saying, yeah, swim at it and climb up it, but what's the end goal? You're going to get caught. That's 100, like you don't want to get, but at least your head's out of the water. So now we got to, now we're looking at that rescue scenario. But even just phrasing it like that is like, oh, yeah, I thought I'd just climb on top of it and then I'd be chill. It's like, no. Like, and the climbing motion might just get your torso on it. But yes, if you can climb on top of it, keep going. Yeah, that's a bizarre one. It's like, yeah, it's on the checklist, so you have to talk about it. And it says, it doubles down. On this checklist, it says, avoid strainers, aggressively self-rescue. So yeah, maybe as a company, you never even utter the words, climb on top of the strainer. Because that's the last thing you would say, and that's the only thing they're going to remember, is like, oh, yeah, a piece of wood, strainer, I climb on top of them. Okay, on here it says high water conditions, swim, self-rescues. This would just be a good moment to talk. Yeah, today we do have high water conditions. Makes our rafting fun, but also us as a team, I would double down on the team aspect of your company and how we need everything to be a little bit more dialed in. And we have less time to do it. It'll be pretty fast between rapids. There's not a lot of downtime, which means there's not a lot of boredom. So we can use that energy to keep our attentions high and, keep our motivations and keep that effective paddling. So I think that was the term that International Rafting Federation, or what it was, IRF, they would use effective. I think they used that. I don't know where I saw that, but effective paddling, because you're going to get sky's the limit of ability and rafters, and at the end of the day, you're just hoping it's effective. So that's a very good adjective. All right, and I'm so glad to do this because this brings up. We're almost at 3 hours, but it's like I need this for my mental game. Like, this is such a heady topic of, safety talk. Like, how much time does it take me to actually go through all these items? But at the end of the day, what I love the most is someone giving the verbatim safety talk or whatever they do in their 10 minutes, and then I kind of, I do my own thing. If I'm going down a trip on the Locksaw with the crew, it's like my rule of, I don't know if you just make an acronym for it. I'll always write in comments to the Gear Garage, try to get my stuff documented at least. And they appreciated it. So that was pretty cool. It's always cool to get a little bit of recognition. Because I appreciate them. The guy who runs it, it's cool to see anything at a high level. Because even me, it's like, no, I'm satisfied running Class 4, and we'll see we'll see what my life of boating brings me. But anyway, so on the I would pick 3 things that I think actually are going to happen today. hey, guess what? Like around the corner, you're not going to think about this first rapid, but that's the only place that crap's going to hit the fan and where we'd have to like make the phone calls home. You know what I mean? And it's like, so we need to pay attention to that. So on the lock side, yeah, it's actually a rapid called, I don't know, like something like Wolf. I don't know what it's called. Like Fang. I think it's just called Fang. No, what the heck? It's the same one on the Grand Canyon. Like it's the tooth one. So what the heck? Anyway, I don't know. What's that rapid? 232. It's rapid 232 in the Grand Canyon. And it's named, I think it's just Fang. All right, let's just say, yeah, it's Fang. Perfect. That's a toothy name. And there's a huge pour over on the left. Now, is it going to kill someone? I've looked at it a lot of times, and it looks like some river levels where it's worse, where it actually, maybe even at low flows, it's worse, where it makes a pour over, almost a low head pour over, and it has a big backwash upstream where you might not be able to swim out of it. But at the end of the day, taking a very litmus test look at it, I don't know. It may not just kill someone. You know what I mean? It might, but let's say it's a place where even mentally you want to take all precautions. Because it's a place where I've even noticed that people can flip their rafts because right above it is a wave that flips rafts. But I also want to take a look at that rapid very specifically to be like, okay, if a raft flips there, you can't just lose your mind and be like, oh my God, everyone's going to die and don't flip there. Well, where are they going to get flushed? And I've kind of pinpointed that they're not going to go. I don't think they're going to get into the nasty part of a retentive part of the pour over. That pour over does suck because it pulls everything to the shore and then you're just in a worse spot. And you would never want to be way left. So you at least need to have some awareness of what this feature is and don't go left. Even like a new people might just go over there and you're just like, oh, hell no. And it was a good opportunity for me to like pick this as a hazard and how to identify as a group that were approaching this hazard. And so, but I even struck out because this hazard is after like Otter Slide. I think it's Otter Slide. But it's after actually a pretty decent, fun, easy class 3, steep rapid. And then boom, and then you have Fang. And I was just like, whoa, I didn't notice that. So like if I was giving the heads up above Otter, I'd be like, hey, we have Otter Slide and then this rapid. And then even at the put-in, I said I would make a... it's like basically the only time I'm going to blow my whistle and then put my paddle up. I'm going to use a very specific command to be like, hey, that's going to identify that we have Fang. That's exactly what that's going to mean, especially because I can do that so fast. Paddle up, quick whistle, identifies what I wanted to do. And even then, there's so many people that want to run the lock saw and they have minimum experience. And so they even struggle at doing a basic moving the boat in a good location. You know what I mean? Because both times I'm like, and also on shore, it's just like, this is the time, if you can watch what I do, copy me exactly. These are the times where I want you to copy me exactly. And I'm trying to show you the most conservative line. That should be as easy as following the dots. But that's the most nerve-wracking thing about teaching newer guides is you're just like, whoa. Like I don't know if you're not caring or... Yeah, and half of it's that. You're just like, you don't understand. You don't see anything. You don't understand why there would be a need to get your boat in an exact location. So that was a very good learning opportunity because I made it simple. I said, this is the feature. It's like, if there's any features that are going to end our day, it's going to be this one. And everything else is class 4. Let's charge. Let's charge and clean up. And we'll take normal lines. But these are the two spots. Like Hospital Hole was the other one. And it's kind of real easy, too, to avoid. But it's just good to know. And it gets people focused on rapids that don't seem like important and being like, oh, well, this is and it was such a good learning opportunity because the two boats that went through, they really struggled, and they almost got into a bad situation over by Fang. But they did okay. And at the end of the day, I was like, whoa, psychology is such an important aspect of teaching rafting. And I even did everything that I wanted to do at that point. I wanted to give a small little, 2-minute talk, be like, hey, this is where I want us to focus. This can be our focus for our warm-up. And I did. And they identified it, but no one took it seriously. It was very interesting. Very interesting litmus test. So I would, yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, that was I did everything I could, but I actually can do a little bit more now. I can know the psychology of people and what their expectations are. All right, so where it says high water conditions, it also talks about swim, self-rescue, so it doubles down on we can't always get to you. The other, so we're really almost towards the end. It says never dive in head first. Okay, fair enough. So but this needs another point. So this is with the company that I might work for this summer. Yeah. So never dive in head first. It means that we're going to be able to jump out of the raft. So that's kind of what we're saying. So it brings up the topic of swimming. Is it okay to jump out of the raft? Well, I mean, just that statement says it seems like you could jump out of the raft all the time, but it's with permission. And I would say never jump out of the boat. That's crazy. So at the health club that I go to, they have a pool, but it doesn't say don't dive head first. That's old hat when it comes to liability waiver. It says do not jump into the pool. So this safety talk, I don't know. I mean, I would want to know what the objective here is. Yes. So never dive in head first. So you're taking away the death. Because, you can just dive right in and you just kill yourself because you didn't know it was 1 foot deep. But the other aspect of this, if you're going to dive in and kill yourself, because you hit your head so hard that you're going to die, then you shouldn't be jumping in anyway. And if the guide is letting you dive in, if the guide's letting you jump in off the boat, it must be deep enough. But you even have newer guys that can't assess how deep the river is. Even they have an imagination of how deep the river is. You know what I mean? All you can tell is your paddle length, and if you can't hit, well, it's at least that deep. Rivers are amazingly shallow and perceptibly shallow even where it looks deep. I would just change this to no jumping in, no jumping out of the boat. No jumping or diving from the boat. Just do that. Never jump. But maybe you want to. Maybe we're still here to have fun. We do family floats, and that's kind of one aspect. Because, that's why I like this. Never dive in head first. That's the other reason why I like this, is because all the other scenarios are at your own risk. And whether you need to allow someone to jump off a boat in a water is a liability nightmare as well. But that's just where it comes down to who cares at that point. It's take me to court at the highest level. You know what I mean? It gets absurd. Gets down to we're not allowed to have any sort of fun because there's just a lot of games you can play with setting up ropes on the boat and where it's placid like a lake and you can spin it around and have people fall off and a lot would be lost if you couldn't do anything on a raft besides just sit there. So I kind of like that. Never dive in the river head first. So I wouldn't add don't jump off the boat. It's because at the end of the day, it's just I want to make sure that whatever the official state national rules are, I just want to know what the minimum is. Because then let's go have some fun. And if someone makes another minimum from 10 years from now, it's well, fine. But we're still at the end of the day, we still want to maximize our fun. So But it just brings up the idea. It says never dive in the river head first. It brings up the idea that you can just be outside of the boat at some point in this trip. So it brings up the idea of we have a rapid called Thanksgiving. You can float the entire rapid top to bottom. You know what I mean? And then at the bottom, it's your goal or your objective to swim back to the boat. Even if, like, we're not really paying attention to how far you get away, but it's just like if you don't think you can get far away from the boat and you're going to have like a panic attack, well, you know, this is on you. That's kind of your, and you don't even need to get in that. It's pretty easy class 2 wave train. Might be some shallow rocks. So you have to kind of pay attention to that. But for the waiver, for the safety talk waiver aspect, the idea is to tell people you have to be in the defensive swim position, feet up. And I think this company already knows that, but maybe not. It was on the Golly. I was actually watching some footage, putting together some documenting every rapid of the upper Golly, and kind of in the middle Golly, you can swim some of the rapids. And that's what the guide said, is like you must be feet up in the defensive swim position. That's all. So said and done, just one word. So I would change this to 2 bullet points. Never dive in the river head first. Ask your guide about opportunities to swim. There may be some swimming opportunities where you can swim, even swim a rapid. I don't know how you're going to phrase that. As the company, you do your own thing. But from a safety perspective, you have to put in a bullet point that says, if you choose to swim in the river today, you need to be in that defensive swim position at all times. Or actively swimming back to the boat on your stomach. But those 2 only. You know what I mean? So either you're showing that you're swimming on your stomach back to the boat, or you're in the defensive swim position. There's no other thing you can do. No dangling feet. So that's what you want to cover on that one. All right, so we have medical considerations, and we're almost done with the safety talk. So this is interesting. You really got to get verbatim on this. It's like, if you think you have any medical considerations that would be pertinent to the next 3 hours of our trip, I think you say it very matter of fact and verbatim kind of every time. So this is one that I would definitely want to have verbatim. You can let your guide know, the trip leader know, and this would be a good time to emphasize maybe if anyone has high medical, you might have a guide that doesn't have a lot of experience guiding but has EMT. So I would bring that up because as a company, I don't know. I don't know. Like I would give the clients options because you want it to be an open dialogue, and maybe I'm just thinking, you just have like you have a guide is not a doctor. A brand new guide in training that's checked off is not a doctor, and maybe you want that person to feel comfortable, and you'd want that person to go to the trip leader with medical, or the EMT. So so for this medical considerations, and all on here is bee sting allergies, and that kind of sets the tone. I wouldn't go into just everything that could possibly happen. I would just, this can be such verbatim on them. So like if you have any medical considerations that you believe are pertinent for the next 3 hours, like whether you would be allergic to a bee sting, and you don't have an EpiPen at the ready. I would even say like that. Everyone's just like, if you're allergic to bee stings and you brought an EpiPen, well, guess what? Like if someone's allergic to bee stings, maybe they didn't bring an EpiPen. So phrasing the negative is actually the better way to say that. It's like if anyone has any medical considerations that are pertinent for the next 3 hours, like i.e. like bee sting allergies, and maybe you didn't bring an EpiPen, that we might want to know that. Because it's like, then it gets into the, it's like, you're gonna be that would suck, and we want to know. But then I would definitely mention is tell. Sure, tell you. I mean, and I would not say you don't tell your guide. I would say you can either tell your guide, I am the trip leader, or we have this person as the EMT. So if you believe, and then just say, if you believe there's something that is pertinent, those are the people that you might want to bring that information up. Okay, and then any questions and concerns? And I guess these two go hand in hand. Like, are we asking, are we giving an out at this point? Because I think I don't know. This is so interesting. Can a person on a raft trip just at any point, like, say, I don't want to go? I don't think so. Like, I mean, I just say this is an outdoor adventure. You know what I mean? From the liability standpoint, you might be in a roadless class 2 canyon class or whatever. But I mean, even this Alberton Gorge, it's very difficult besides a helicopter to get the average person out of there. You know what I mean? I guess you have like one of the steepest hikes up to a railroad that you can do at a couple locations. But it's deep down and enough of a gorge. And it's not even that big of a deal. But compared to all the other gorges in Colorado, no, you're stuck. Oh, well, actually, those are probably easier. You do have a lot of railroad traffic. I mean, old railroads up and down those things. But in our little Alberton Gorge, like, so the idea is that if you're putting this on your safety talk, everyone still wants to go. If you're even mentioning that, then it needs to come with the caveat that you signed a waiver to go rafting. Like, this is that moment that you're like, nope. But if we're all on board, that opportunity, so it's just like, I don't think you phrase it that way either. Like, the opportunity to leave this trip does not exist. I mean, that can, what I would want to teach guides is that, yes, that opportunity, like, let's say you chose to go up Mount Everest and decided to, like, I don't want to go up or down anymore. You know, it's like, and then what's our obligation? Like, holy Toledo, like, you just, like, well, let's say there's only one guide, and it's just like, well, I can't have this separate. I don't know. It's like, obviously that it brings up this idea of like, so I always thought, if you don't want to go on this trip at any point, you can just say no. Well, that's insanity. Because to a degree, you signed up to go on the trip and you're going to finish it. You can't be on a roller coaster ride and halfway and push the stop button. You know what I mean? There is an effectiveness of the trip from point A to point B that you signed up to take the risk. It's just like jumping out of an airplane. This is that's so good. I'm so glad I'm thinking this through. Because it's just like, okay, when you sign up to go skydiving, which I do recommend, I've never done it, it just sounds something that I would recommend. When you go skydiving, you're offered the opportunity to not go up to the point of jumping out of the plane. But once you jump out of the plane, guess what? You lose that ability to say, yep, I choose not to go. So this is a great opportunity to be like, yes, it sounds like a rude way to say it, but it opens up the opportunity to talk about the team approach. Yes, if you don't want to go, yes, we can make arrangements right now, but we're going to put the wheels in motion, and we're going to go whitewater rafting. And it's going to be, hopefully, a lot of fun. And some of that fun might be some of the things that can happen today. But that's what makes it fun, and we have parameters set in place. And this is what we do. So yes, it is exciting. These things can happen. These things will happen. And it's just good to imagine that they happen today. Like all of them. A boat flips. People swam. So on the bus ride home, we can be like, hey, who swam in the Alberton Gorge today? Who thought this river was like butt cheeks cold? We can do that. And so even, like, I've never done this before, but even just using the voice recorder, it's good. People want that perspective of like, oh, that idea that after this trip, they'll have a different perspective on the trip. That this is the point where, yes, we talk about all the things that do happen. That's why I never liked even first year guiding, and everything's a learning in progress. When I was a first year guide, and I was just like, whoa, like I don't have the social skills to do this, but then I also have the opinion to see what I don't like and like. And I didn't really like when, you have third year trip leaders, and it's not a yearly thing. It's just what people get taught in the industry to say. And so this guy would be like, well, yeah, if these things, he would say it respectively. He would say if these things happened every day, he wouldn't be a guide. But that's crazy, because these things do happen. Well, I guess they don't happen He's saying a true statement. But like 1 out of 10 days, those things all happen all the time. You know what I mean? So you're using statistics in a very shady way to be like, yes, today, like if this stuff happened every day, because in the whole raft industry, I don't know how many. Well, in Colorado, on a high water year, just on the rivers that they run, 6 people can die on a high water year, and an average of 3 to 6, 4 to 5 people, and it fits right into that statistical. It's a little higher. It's double that Colorado River at high water, because they do run it at high water. Is like twice as dangerous. But whatever. You know what I mean? Like that's where skydiving should always be the same amount of danger, unless some sort of environmental causes were causing it to be higher in a certain area than another area. But rafting is very river-centric. Colorado, everyone wants to go on vacation in June, and the river's cold. Yep, and it's just a recipe. On this Alberton Gorge, you actually don't get on it at high water. It's a little bit of a death trap. So we wait till it comes down, and when it comes down, then you're just statistically, that's why there hasn't been a commercial, I don't think a commercial death like on the river. There's been private, boating deaths on that stretch. But yeah, that I'm kind of getting off topic, but that just doubles down on the fact that, you don't treat a river like you haven't had one. You treat a river like you have, and then go from there. But yeah, back to the thing of everyone still want to go. Yeah, you signed up to go. And then I was talking about just the aspect of, talking about once the trip's done. Oh, and then that guide saying, if this stuff happened every day, I wouldn't be a guide. Well, it does. If it doesn't happen every day, it happens every 10 days. So yeah, boats flip every so often. But I don't know. So, and sometimes they don't. You're on a river where, flips are rare, but you're on a river, that's even worse. Because if you're on a river where flips are rare, when that does happen, it can be a big deal. It can be like oh crap, like it's not in our head game to be aware of this. It was an anomaly. Especially, that's where a family float trip could just be catastrophic. Family floats are always can be super high stress on me, just because they're a one boat affair. There's still stuff that can flip and wrap a boat. If you had any runaway swimmers in a family float, they would flush drown potentially pretty easily. But typically that life jacket should keep you alive. But that's so bizarre. That just doubles down on why flush drowning is such a thing to look at, because you're just like, whoa, wait, you're floating and you just didn't time your breath? Yes. That's literally the definition of flush drowning. And it happens statistically a lot, given all the data from the American Whitewater Database. It's just shockingly, and that's why I love Gear Garage. Their assessment, they did a very good assessment to my perspective of, spacing is the most, spacing and having safety, and then this idea of numbers, and they do, they bring up solo boat. Yeah, no one wants to advertise, so I want to advertise solo boating. This is a great little rant. If you're training to become a pilot, do you never go solo? No, you do go solo. You take your own life into your own hands. That's actually better than and that's where I like Gear Garage, because they take in the aspects if you're going to take your novice family, and you think just because I have 3 people in the boat on a one boat trip, that's going to be safer than me just oaring the thing down by myself. No, you compounded the danger. Those 2 people are going to be useless to help the situation. And you might have just killed 2 people instead of you I mean, if you have enough awareness to go down the river by yourself, to a degree, you're at lower risk compared to just the average person flush drowning that has no experience. And from the aspect of becoming a pilot, you're going to fly a plane by yourself all the time. You know what I mean? So any class, and no matter what your game is, I've always gone down rivers. I don't know. I got into rivers like in college and high school. And in high school, I'd go with friends. But the second I got into college, I got a solo canoe, and I still wanted to go down rivers. And I just found myself wanting to go down rivers by myself. And I would still go down easy. I would always pick like a river that's easier. So, I don't know. I'd go down class 2 rivers by myself. And I even, I'd practice my canoe roll, and I was even able to roll this whitewater canoe. But it was big. It wasn't designed to roll. It wasn't designed as a whitewater canoe, but I did have the float bags for it, and I did roll it. But one of the times I tipped over, I had to swim it to shore. Yeah, and that's crazy. I'm all by myself on a class 2, no roadless class 2. But what happened is I got in the mindset of clean up my mess. I'm out here, something happened, I'm going to do it myself. And what rafting goes wrong is you do have this huge group. That's why I'm so glad I mentioned that. Because a lot of this is you feel like there's safety in numbers in this group. But there is this real aspect that we need you to stay level-headed when you are swimming in the river by yourself. When we point and say, yep, this is your time to actually do what you need to do to swim, whether it's using your arms on your back or being aggressive, and you know how to swim. I would always want to do that. You're not expecting to fall out, but who here, if they, checked in at a night in a hotel, could go down to the pool, it could swim across. You know what I mean? Who here can swim across a hotel pool with pretty good confidence? Okay, and you get those people to raise your hand. So the one visual is today, if you fall out of the boat, at a certain time, whether it's getting separated or blah, 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 it's that might be one of the things you're going to have to do today is swim that distance and swim it pretty quickly. But also, you can't just sprint across a hotel pool. You're going to get too tired. So yes, you swim. It's tiring, but I guess the idea would be doubling down on just you are going to swim, and it's going to take a little while. It takes a little while from swimming from one side of the hotel pool to the other, right? So that's the aspect of today. It's yes, if you do find yourself swimming, just keep at it. You know what I mean? And keep going. Pick a target and go. And then I really like that because up to this point I never mentioned anything about swimming and saying yes, the second you start to swim, you have a point A and a point B. Just keep going, keep doing. And again, if that's not for you, we have this minimum of getting on your back. But at least you can do this with your arms. So it gives you a minimum. Oh, and this is perfect because if I can find the video on the Colorado, there's 2 gals, and they got the GoPros on, and they're swimming, and they're doing the whole giggly. They're just they're psychologically they're making into a giggly thing because they look like they're gonna die. There's no boat in sight. They got flushed down. They're below their entire group, it looks like, and they're just keeping on going. I don't know how far it looks like they go for miles, and maybe there's a boat downstream, but they're just swimming for 3 or 4 minutes with nothing around, no one talking to them, and you just go. It's just madness. That's madness for the brain. Yeah, they're just doing the death giggles. And it's just holy Toledo. That's where, you really want to teach at the end of the day. It's yes, to do something. It's we got your minimum tools. At least get your feet up. You can go out to the Pacific Ocean. But no, you can't. You know what I mean? To a certain degree, you get the hell out of that river. And we can't get to you or tell you to swim a certain way, you kind of have to figure it out yourself. Shore's your best option. And then talk about that hotel pool. Swim to shore. Keep going. Pick a direction and go. Cool. Nice. I'm glad I was able to talk about that. So yeah, at the end of this, it's just everyone still want to go. And, the great analogy is the skydiving. Yes, you can choose not to go until you jump out of the plane. But the second we get this ball in motion, then that's where I was glad. I was like, yes, but yes, this stuff might happen. And then I was talking about the guy who didn't like it happen. He said it wasn't going to happen every day. But to keep that perspective of like, yes, after this trip, we're going to be on the bus ride home and be like, hey, who swam today? Like, who wants to raise their hand and be proud they maybe like fell out of the boat? I don't know. Like, who's gung-ho to go rafting? And to a degree, yes, this trip might not be the most exciting thing, and that's fine. There's a lot of peaceful aspects of boating. And then that's where that's a good aspect, because getting to the river, like, you kind of pumped them up a little bit by giving them a safety talk of all the crazy things that's going to happen, potentially. And then the aspect of, like, the quiet solitude of a river. Yeah, it might be boring, but let's use that energy to actually get in the boats, because a lot can happen between now and walking to the put-in. That's where people are going to stumble and fall. That's where even me as a guide, I want to be able to, take my time. You know what I mean? Make sure that we're all set. So I know we're all eager to like jump in the boats, but work with us, and we will. But just be real cautious. You know what I mean? Like, go at your own pace, take your time. But let's do this. Those are the things that I see. Even when I'm trying to like teach myself, if I'm ever boating by myself, I just take my time. But every time I'm with another crew, you always feel like, hey, you're rushed. You're trying to race to be the first one on the water, so like you're prepared. But yeah, you can run around too much. So to think like a fireman, where you're just like, yep, I move by walking, point A to point B. I use my brain more than my feet. So, maybe make half the trips, think things through. Especially at the start. The end of the safety talk says, I verify that the guide has discussed all the above items during the safety talk before our raft trip, and then we sign and date it. So that's good. Print your name and sign it. All right, at least it was under 3.5 hours. So, but that's why the safety talk just always is a bugger. Because every time that's why I got my style. Like on the lock saw, someone else do the safety talk. Get all that verbatim out of the way. You know what I mean? Just that circus trick of a speech, of a 15-minute speech, 30-minute speech. Crazy. But then I really like to do the top 3. Like, what the hell is going to happen today? Because if we can identify those 3 things that we think are going to happen today, they probably won't, and then we can move on to the other things that actually are. A big part of my own safety when it comes to running solo trips is my mantra is like, I want to make sure I've thought of 10 things and I'm dialed in on 10. So when one thing happens, I'm not surprised. You know what I mean? Like I'm prepared for that. The second you start to cut all 10 corners, then you got an issue. So when it comes to when I run by myself, like walk slowly to the put-in. No reason to stumble and trip. Mindset, just keep it dialed in. That's what I did on the Grand Canyon. People are like, how'd you do the Grand? Even on the Grand Canyon, people are like, how's the trip going? You know what I mean? Like, you doing good? And I'm just like, yep. I'm just like one step at a time. You know what I mean? And just one step, one thing at a time. And even at the camp, camps would be the worst because if I trip and stumble and then hurt my wrist, I'm in the middle of the Grand Canyon. I got to paddle my way out of there. So, perfect. So this kind of end our conversation because it ends our conversation on solo boating. And the idea is we all want to make rafting fun. We all want to go gung-ho, but we can't go gung-ho every day. So part of like effective training and company standards when it comes to guides is like, yes, do we go big and where? And here's where we don't. Here's where we absolutely, because even my mind is just like, well, I remember taking a crew of Boy Scouts and then their papas, 2 big old guys, and the kids like, I want to sit in the front. And I was like, sure, do whatever you want. You know what I mean? But then we had all the weight in the back, and we were terribly lopsided. And then that night and then that morning, I scouted a different run that I wanted to do. I just wanted to do it. I wanted to go kind of over like a beefy kind of pour over drop that I think we could get through. But even just that statement, I thought we could get. But anyway, that's such a novice mistake. I was even 4 years into guiding, but I thought I was at the point where it's just like, yeah, I see other guides wanting to do whatever they want to do, and this is what I want to do, so I'm going to do it. And but just I didn't have the crew to do it with it. I had like 13-year-old kids, and I don't know. So yeah, looking back at that, I would have definitely done that different. But I just chalked it up as a rookie mistake. But it doesn't matter how many years in the game, you always can make a rookie mistake. So this was like my 5th year guiding, and I was making a rookie mistake. And we pumped through that. We actually got through that stretch. But even that, had they swam there, like the next rapid is the most difficult rapid of the day, and if people swim through there, then your flush drowning issues really, really skyrocket. But we did flip that day. We flipped on Fang. I was just trying to hit everything as big as possible. So from that aspect, I was taking a lot of risks. And we flipped on Fang. That was the last one, but that's fine. You flip there and you pick up the pieces. And I just ran it square and big, but our whole boat was just so poorly dynamic with all the adults in the back that, yeah, it couldn't track straight. We got sideways. I called high side. No one did. We flipped. I flipped the boat back over very quickly, super fast recovery, pulled everyone in except maybe one person and cleaned up the whole mess. It was actually really impressive, and it was a good experience for other guides to be like, whoa, you cleaned that up fast. And I was like, yes, that's the standards that we should be practicing. I mean, we should be practicing that weekly, like a weekly flip drill. Like this is actually at least twice a week. Hey, let's go flip some boats. Keep it fresh. Because when you're going to flip boats is in July when the water goes down and you flip on like something nasty, like because a rock flipped your whole boat over. But back to that solo, it gets down to like, yes, when I go solo boating, I still want to do fun things. On the Grand Canyon, I couldn't do everything. My whole goal is just to get through. That was actually the best goal. When your whole goal is just to like get through, that's an awesome goal. It's going to keep your risk down. When your goal is to hit everything as sweet and as tight and like as big as possible, yeah, it's a recipe. You know what I mean? So when I'm on the long side, yeah, I want to do more things. And this brings up a whole nother topic, but there are places in a river where, yes, you can go bigger and it's safer to do so. And then there's some whack places where you're just like, yeah, I didn't think that was a dangerous place. But yeah, no one goes over there and you tried and you did something different because you thought you could. And actually, that's the place that's going to get you. Like, there's a lot of scenarios like that. Kayakers like going over this little slot, and you're like, yeah, no one does that, and this is why. So there's wherever you are at in your boating career, there's always a safer place to go bigger. Like there's like, hey, can you even get down this wave train and keep your boat straight? There's something to work on. Like, hey, this eddy is really hard to catch. And I've never heard anyone dying catching an eddy. So go catch that eddy. It's a vicious, hard eddy to catch. You might flip actually, but it's not going to kill you. So you have these aspects. And solo boating is the same. Like, could I just go down a river solo and be like, you know what? My whole goal is just to stay alive. And it goes back to that pilot. Like, can a pilot fly a solo flight? Yes, they do it all the time. It's almost like a requirement. And yeah, it just shows like rivers can be the same way. Like, yes, I can get from point A on a river trying to do it statistically the safest way in a manner that's taking the least amount of risks. And it really brings up a good perspective for new guides. Like the one thing for this guide training is I really want to introduce the concept of what's a green line. And it goes back to that lawyer. I really appreciate his video. You know what I mean? I like to throw a lot of aggression and even passive aggressiveness because like we all get filled up with it. And if we don't let it out, we don't even know where we stand. But then once we do know where we all stand, then we can kind of, hopefully see where this whole, raft industry of opinions is going. But one of the aspects that I liked about his videos, definitely talk more about lines. Because I want to teach raft guiding, like from the training perspective, new guides, like the green lines, like can actually be really exciting because they're actually harder lines. A green line can be a harder line, but what it's doing is setting you up statistically for a safer ride. So where you would take a statistically safer ride is if you had elderly passengers, young kids, young passengers. You actually have to get the boat to do actually a harder line than just run right down the meat or something like that. Or you know what I mean? So that is the interesting aspect of green lines. They can be more dynamic. And I remember just being on Wenatchee. I had a really amazing year, and I was pretty manic. But I got to do a lot of training in other people's boats, and I got to be in their boats while they trained. And I just remember like this, and I was really mad. I kind of have schizophrenia, but it's like I just remember this, like the guy's like, I'm 30 years in the business. You know what I mean? And it's just like he said such a cool personality. And that whole, it was almost like I was on an acid trip that entire year. And I just have mental illness. I don't do any drugs. I just have to make sure that I make sure I'm not symptomatic and I've spent my whole life going from that scenario to being like, yes, this is my limitations. But anyway, I really appreciate, he took green lines. He took kind of that classic, hey, these people don't want too much water in the boat. They don't want to go over big waves. They just want to have a bumpy ride and a fun ride. And actually the green lines were more dynamic. I remember like feeling like, woo, I'm getting like kind of tossed around a little bit. Not that I was going to get thrown out of the boat, but it was still a really fun experience. So I just thought that was interesting, like how not hitting like a wave square on, but finding these other lines were still made the boat dynamic. As total side note. But I do like the aspect of teaching green lines in a raft. You're going to spend so much time going after the meat that, if I'm in a boat and teaching people, like, yes, we're hands down the safest line through is the one that should be taught right off the bat. You're going to have all the mindset's going to go, I'm going to go hit that wave. That's all anyone's looking about is like, hey, that wave's going to make a great hit, and that's what I'm going to hit. But if you show people like the green lines, because even on that big drop, what the guy, the whole video for the guy, he didn't want people to overlook, but he missed the mark by by making it into like taking the rescue scenario and turning it into propaganda. Like the whole fact that somebody died wasn't even part of, I don't know, maybe it was. Somebody fell out and there was a fatality. But he just used that. He didn't even give you details. The kid's life jacket fell off, which was the 100% the reason of death, probably. I just don't know the 100% details from that ground level, and you don't get all the details just from a light water. But that was the scenario. PFD fell off. But anyway, I like his videos because even on that, you could take the inside line. Yeah, that right line is more conservative. But is that undercut an actual hazard? There's undercuts everywhere. Like even on the Colorado. Like, every bend could be an undercut bend because it's got boulders that like you could get chalked up in. But I don't know. And maybe statistically other people have died on that bend. And other things have got caught in there. Kayakers have got stuck. I don't think so. I don't know. It just looks like a pile of boulders. I guess definition of undercut, stay away. But even a floating swimmer looks like they might just float by. I have no idea, but that's my assessment. Is like yes, there are safe lines, but I don't know. I mean, if that corner isn't a risk, if someone has a life jacket, I don't know. But obviously, it is risky enough that a swimmer without a life jacket got chalk stoned up against those boulders, got undercut, sieved. So maybe I can just use science and say, that happened. And, the safest line is on the inside. You know what I mean? If there's other rapids to go big, point taken. So, I also don't want, it's too easy to be like, whoa, I see where you're going. But no. Like, we all take risks on YouTube. We all take risks, our opinions. It's real. You can take any opinion and be like, no, I think, that's wrong because this is the idea that you were talking about. But that was my take-home point on that. And I just used that motivation. I'm going to use all that motivation to make this, talking about safety, talking about like what I think happens, the perspective. And it's way too long. 3.5 hours, you'd have to just listen to this on a podcast and, I don't know, and just go on a 3.5 hour walk. But I think I said it. All right, that's a video.